joined by members of the Daisy Troop 210 and Brownie Troop 64388 from the Vincent Owens School. They will be led by the Winchester High School Girl Scout Troop 77026, who will present the colors and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Town meeting members, board members, and honored guests, we would like to begin. Please stand for our flag ceremony. Girl Scouts, attention. Color Guard, attention. Color Guard, advance. Color Guard, present the colors. Please join us in saying the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Color Guard, post the colors. Color Guard, retreat. Town meeting members, board members, honored guests, the town moderator.
Thank you very much. It is now my honor to swear in the new members of town meeting and those who were re-elected in the most recent town election. Please stand. Yep. So, please repeat after me. I state your name. Do solemnly swear that I will faithfully and impartially discharge and perform sorry, a little bit short of myself. All the duties of the office which I have been elected in accordance with the laws of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts and the Charter and the bylaws of the town of Winchester. Congratulations. So tonight there is a concurrence of events and anniversaries and milestones that need to be acknowledged by the chair. Last week the nation celebrated the 250th anniversary of the commencement of the Revolutionary War. Though the focus of these celebrations are our neighbors to the south and west in Lexington and Arlington, I want to take a moment to recognize two men who lived on the land that is now Winchester, who answered the call and were part of the hostilities in Lexington on April 19, 1775. Lieutenant John Sims. At the time of the Revolution, the territory that is now Winchester had 35 houses. Yet, during the Revolution, 41 men from what is now Winchester fought for American independence. The second anniversary I'd like to acknowledge is on April 30th, 1850, Governor George Briggs signed the Act of Incorporation creating the town of Winchester. As we celebrate the 175th anniversary of our incorporation as a town this week, I ask town meeting members and all residents of Winchester to be on the lookout for events being held to commemorate the anniversary. Celebrations kick off this Wednesday evening, the anniversary itself, with the Winchester Historical Society and their presentation of an anniversary program beginning at 7 p.m. at the Sanborn House. They invite the public to join them, and more information can be found on their website. Is the thing up here? No. I'd also like to take a moment to note the passing of two members of this body. Charles Chuck Neuenberger passed away on March 18th. A member of the Winchester High School class of 1971, Chuck represented Precinct 8 for 25 years in this town meeting. He also served on the Finance Committee, the Planning Board, and the Select Board, including as its chair in 2003. James Johnson III, Jimmy as he was known to most of us, was a lifelong resident of Winchester. A graduate of Winchester High in 1972, he served on the town meeting from 1988 until his passing on April 14th. He was a member of the Select Board from 1998 to 2016, the Capital Planning Committee from 2005 to 2024, the Veterans Memorial Committee, the Town Day Committee, and many, many more. For his contributions to his beloved Winchester, he was awarded Citizen of the Year in 2017. His passing is still so fresh, but every time I think of Jimmy, I can't help but to smile. His love of the town of Winchester was infectious. His knowledge of every bridge, building, and depot encyclopedic. His suggestions and advice to the new town moderator abundant. There is a void left with his passing, and I ask town meeting to join me in a moment of silence for Mr. Neuenberger and Mr. Johnson and all those who have passed since we last met. Thank you. Lastly, I want to introduce myself. My name is Philip Frateroli. I'm your new town moderator. For the purposes of parliamentary formality, you may refer to me in this meeting as Mr. Moderator, or for the very bold, you can try to attempt my last name at your own risk. Since Winchester Town Moderator is a position which turns over a little bit less frequently than the papacy, I want to take a moment to acknowledge and thank my predecessor, Heather Von Mering, for her work for the town. Thank you. So before we begin our agenda, I would like to overview of what we hope to be doing tonight. It would have been a little bit easier with a working projector, but I'm still optimistic that we can complete it. After hearing from town boards and committees and taking a break to conduct the precinct meetings in accordance with our bylaws, our business tonight is primarily going to be zoning. And if time allows, we hope to complete the capital planning report and associated articles. We begin all town meetings with 7 preliminary motions and a series of motions that are currently placed on the consent agenda. See page 1 of your motion book. The preliminary motions. It is moved and seconded that the following preliminary motions be voted as one. That Beth Rudolph, Town Manager, Stacy Ward, Comptroller, Town Council, or his designee, and Mark J. Toogood, Assistant Town Manager, who are not town meeting members, be permitted to sit at the front of the auditorium with the Select Board during all sessions of this town meeting. 2, that all members of the Finance Committee and their secretary, whether town meeting members or not, be permitted to sit together at the front of the auditorium during all sessions of this town meeting. 3, that the town clerk or her designee or the assistant town clerk be permitted to occupy a desk at the platform during all sessions of this town meeting. 4, that the moderator be authorized to permit members of various town boards, commissions, committees, department heads, and petitioners of special articles to sit at the front of the auditorium during consideration of the appropriate articles. Number 5, that unless it be otherwise ordered, all adjourned sessions of this town meeting be held on successive Monday and Thursday evenings at 6:30 p.m. in the Winchester High School auditorium until the work of this town meeting is completed. 6, that the action of all motions involving appropriations shall be contingent upon the compliance with the provisions of Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 59, Section 21C, a law known as Proposition 2.5. And finally, that the television coverage shall be permitted at all sessions of this town meeting. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. The ayes have it. There are 2/3 in the affirmative, and the motion carries. We also should take a moment. Our town clerk, Mary Ellen Marshall, will not be able to attend town meeting on Thursday evening, May 1st, and on Monday, May 5th, due to the graduation of her daughter from college in Nashville, Tennessee. It's the first time she will miss a town meeting in her position as clerk. May I have a motion to appoint assistant town clerk for May 1st and May 5th? Do I have a second? Okay, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? 2/3 in the affirmative, the motion carries. Next, we switch to the consent agenda. Before we proceed on that, I would like to note a Scribner's error on Article 13. The first number in the total appropriation should read $166,400.98. Yep. $166,400.98. Noting that, we can now vote on the consent agenda. It is moved and seconded that the 2025 Springtown meeting advance for consideration Articles 2, 8, 9, 11, 12, 13, 15, 26, 29, 32, 34, and 35, and take action on such articles without debate, that specified motions as set forth in this motion book provide that upon request of 5 voters at this meeting made before the vote is taken on this motion, or otherwise at the moderator's discretion, an article shall be removed from the consent agenda and shall be acted upon in the ordinary course of business at this town meeting. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries by a 2/3 majority. Okay, so now we will turn to Article 1, to hear and act upon the reports of town officials, boards, committees, and commissioners. To begin our presentations, the chairperson of the Select Board, Michelle Pryor. It should be. No, they're...
Slide button.
Is that on? Sorry. I had some great slides, but you're going to have to see them when they're posted later. So, okay, you can start the clock. First, I need to acknowledge and welcome back to the Select Board Anthea Brady, and welcome our newest member, Paris Bayani, to the board. Grateful to have you. Okay, so I have just 3 concepts for tonight's report out. The first is to ask for your support on Select Board-sponsored articles. We have 4 on the warrant. Article 19, to authorize the appropriation of an additional sum of money for the Morocco culvert. That's a Jimmy Johnson legacy project. We've run into some challenges, which you'll hear about. We certainly hope you'll support the funding for that to get that last flood mitigation project completed. Article 20, to appropriate free cash to the Strategic Maintenance Fund to extend the useful life of town assets. That will be presented by the Capital Planning Committee Chair, but it's co-sponsored with us. Article 21, to vote on water and sewer rates, pretty standard Springtown meeting action. And then Article 31, to authorize the Select Board to convey an easement for the purposes of wetland remediation and facilitating the development of 10 Converse Place. So those are our 4 articles. They'll come up in the course of business. The next one was a series of pictures, which you can't see, but we were highlighting work that had been done since the fall town meeting. Progress on new heat at the Mystic School, a picture of the high school gym floor from today. It's been completely gutted, so not just the floor, but all of it. And playgrounds, we had a shot of new equipment at McDonald Field and Leonard Field. We hope that those playgrounds will be completed this spring. They were great pictures, and thank you to DPW for getting them for us. So now the ongoing work of the Select Board continues. We are continuing to look at creative ways to finance our capital projects, looking beyond the capital and building stabilization funds, looking to leverage grants, borrowing, and free cash. We used a combination of all of those things in the fall, and some of those are moving those projects that I just mentioned forward. Over the past year and a half, I asked the town manager to pull this together. Between grants and earmarks, the town's received over $1.6 million. Those have been invested in projects and infrastructure improvements such as the South Reservoir Dam, windows at the Mystic School, recreational facilities, playground improvements, and a new trauma screener and digester at the transfer station. We're also focused on developing new housing. Housing is currently being developed at 87 to 89 Cross Street. The LDA for Washington and Swanton Street was signed in March, and the Planning Board's MBTA 3A zoning was approved by the state. So we do have some opportunities to continue to build housing units in our town. It's said that Winchester's primary industry is education, and while that's certainly true, there have always been residents who are not past, present, or future public school members or their caretakers. As we develop mixes of housing of various sizes, we should be mindful of the fact that our community is people of all ages, whether or not they matriculated from Winchester High School or will matriculate too. So the last piece, we're going to hear a lot about this Springtown meeting, I think, is the state of the town and structural deficits. So we as a select board have kicked off the state of the town process. And why now? We are faced with a structural deficit. That's simply defined as we are spending more than we take in as revenue. In the FY26 budget, we were challenged by health insurance costs that were almost double what we'd projected. And we have, in every season, we have to honor contractual obligations. So salaries and contracts with unions, and some of those annual adjustments may exceed our local receipts and our revenues, which are pretty much limited at 3 to 3.5%. The choices this town meeting makes on the extent of free cash use will grow our structural deficit. The only question is by how much. And those choices will have an impact on the amount of additional funding that's requested in operating override, likely to go before voters in March of next year. So within the state of the town process, we committed as a select board, and we'll certainly be looking for input from residents, to look at a few specific areas of inquiry. Revenue growth from non-property tax sources, operating needs, municipal and schools, capital needs, and we also intend to look at structural costs and efficiencies. Where can we find savings? Not just where can we grow revenues and where can we tax more. We expect to meet twice a month. It will be led by the select board, and Paris has graciously raised his hand, so he will be the face of the state of the town, representing the select board lead on this effort. We will have multiple other committees, town staff, and other roles. We intend to resurrect the Citizen Facts Committee, which was put in place 25 years ago to get true citizen involvement independent of the select board run process. We hope to meet twice a month, time and date to be determined, and provide updates and progress on the town's website. The outputs of this effort should be hopefully an agreed upon set of facts and assumptions and updated data, a multi-year revenue and expense plan that you can all see and residents will be able to review. We will come back to fall town meeting with an update, and by we I mean Paris. And the output will be override timing and phasing. How will that play out? Where will it come in? We all know these are very challenging times. Federal funding is at risk. State aid is not yet defined. Tariffs will be eating into everyone's disposable income. We should be very mindful of what we're asking our neighbors to put forward as additional property taxes. We intend to be very intentional in that process. So as I mentioned, there are opportunities for you as residents, for your neighbors, to get involved. Please raise your hand. We really will try to keep those meetings to 1 hour or less. So the last bit of business is please support our select board sponsored articles. Another thing you can't see is the list of open committees and boards, which I always put in my presentation. You can find that at winchester.us.jobs. There are currently 6 committees with open seats. So if you don't want to do state of the town or facts, but you'd like to be on the audit advisory committee or cultural council, please apply. And thank you all for your service to Winchester, and let's have a good Springtown meeting.
Thank you, Mrs. Pryor. And now for an update from the Finance Committee, it's Chairperson Jeff Calabrese.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Thank you, Town Meeting. My name is Jeff Calabrese. I'm the chair. It's good to see everybody again. I wanted to take this time, and I too had some well-prepared slides, but we'll just wing it right now, to talk about 4 core issues that we uncovered through the budget process. Number 1, operating deficits. Number 2, lack of capital investment. Number 3, our credit rating. And number 4, available funding sources. As Chair Pryor mentioned, our expenses are accelerating past our revenues at an increasing pace. The start of our FY26 budget was a $4.5 million deficit. That put the town of Winchester on a path to allocate 33% of our free cash or reserves between fall town meeting and this spring town meeting. That is just not sustainable. And our Article 22, which is the FY26 budget, is next Monday, and we'll talk a bit more about that. Number 2, lack of capital investment. We are not spending enough money on capital by the tune of $13 million per year. There's a Gordian study that was published on a town meeting website, an expert consultant that looked at our $600 million of assets and determined that we need to spend $21 million per year to maintain the quality of our assets. So what does that mean? 2 things. 1, every year the quality of our assets decline. That's just by default. We do not spend enough money. Number 2, if we wanted to increase our investment to $21 million, the town would run out of money in a year and a half. That's not hyperbole. That's just where we are as of today. And we feel it is our job to put those facts out to town meeting when we're making these decisions. Number 3, our credit rating. We've talked about Moody's AAA bond rating. That is also posted on a town meeting website. I encourage you to read through the actual opinion from Moody's from February 20th of this year. So we'll talk more about that on Monday. But a lot of questions we got is, what is the dollar impact of losing that bond rating from a AAA to a AA? It is an increase of 1/4 point in our borrowing cost. So if and when Morocco gets billed, if we assume a $90 million principal over 30 years, that project will become $5 million more expensive. So just to put additional context around our situation. And number 4, available funding paths. So you hear the phrase circuit breaker money a lot. What is it? In short, it's state reimbursements to the school department for specific costs. So if you look at our budget book, on page 8, we have a little bit of a write-up of circuit breaker money. The key takeaway here is that Winchester has 1 full year of this money banked, which is approximately $2.4 million. And we feel that is available to solve our budget issue for FY26. Now, I'll leave you with 3 things to keep in mind. Number 1, we feel the money is already available to solve our FY26 issues outside of reserves, and we'll show that on Monday. Number 2, conscious of our Moody's bond rating, why increase the risk if we don't have to? So again, I encourage you to read our budget book. We tried to limit it to only 23 pages, so I think it's digestible. And number 3, more speaking as advisors to town meeting, recommending not to reduce your ability to react to the unknown. As Chair Pryor also mentioned, we don't know what's going to hit this town this year. Free cash and reserves can be used across town. And we're standing and sitting in a building that's required millions of dollars worth of repairs that we did not account for. So those are 3 things that I wanted to leave you with. Thank you.
Thank you very much. 3 minutes, 54 seconds. Let that be the standard for everybody else coming up to present. Now, to give an update from the school department, School Committee Vice Chairman Tim Matthews.
Good evening, town meeting. I also had a very extensive deck that was prepared that we will try to send out. I don't know the town clerk if it was possible.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're going to send it out.
We'll send all the slides out with the wrap-up.
All right. So I am here tonight on behalf of our chair, Karen Mariama Bolognese, who is traveling and has a family obligation. is therefore unable to be with us. I'm really pleased to work with such a dedicated group of colleagues. Karen, Stephanie, Tom, Michelle, thank you so much. And I wanted to say a special word of thanks tonight as well to Mr. Christian Nixon, who served for many, many years with dedication on school committee. Thank you, Chris. We're pleased to report this year that district leadership is once again complete with the addition at the beginning of the school year of a director of special education. It's a really key priority because that position supports our students who require IEP services. Our public schools are called on to support the needs of every learner in Winchester, and we're guided in doing so by the principles that are in the district's mission statement, and I'll read that for you since it won't appear on the screen. That's to provide all students with an outstanding education in a nurturing yet challenging environment that fosters academic achievement, healthy social and emotional development, an enthusiasm for education, and a lifelong love for learning. Public education is something that is for all, regardless of their need. And the district has a statutory obligation to provide each student with a free and appropriate public education, or FAPE. Public education is a necessity in America because it fosters the development of civil society for each new generation, but it is something that requires both iteration and investment. And we've been proud that in Winchester we've been able to provide an excellent educational experience from pre-kindergarten through high school graduation with the social emotional supports that empower children to succeed. Why is investment in public education important? That's because over time, circumstances change. As you all know from looking at the past 5 years, we had COVID. The situation that came out of that pandemic was learning loss, higher levels of remediation needed in the classroom. And research has started to teach us what's effective to remediate that. But if we don't provide each student a free and appropriate public education, that's unfair to those students and their families, and it also opens the district to liability. Winchester is not alone in facing the funding challenges that it faces for the fiscal year 2026. I had a slide that actually showed many of the articles, both nationally and locally, where budget pressures in a variety of communities are featured. Just some highlights around the headwinds that are facing communities in the Boston area and across Massachusetts. In February 2023, the city of Woburn, just next to us, resolved a strike which had 1 week of lost instruction and resulted in an average of 3.375% per year in added cost of living adjustments for their teachers over the course of their 4-year contract. In Newton, in January and February of 2024, there were 11 days of lost instruction and a 12% COLA increase negotiated for teachers over a 4-year contractual period, as well as the addition of social work supports and counseling and psychological staff to support the needs around COVID. Beverly, Gloucester, and Marblehead on the North Shore all experienced strikes in tandem in November of 2024, and there was a focus on cost of living adjustments, leave policies, and equitable pay for paraprofessionals, who are sort of the bread and butter of what's done in the classroom. And in North Andover, you might have heard very recently that there was a student walkout by the high school students, and even though they're actually experiencing a 9% year-over-year budget increase, they're still having to undertake educator layoffs in order to meet their budget. In area communities, educators have asked for and secured contractual increases in compensation to match inflation, but obviously there are other needs as well. And in Winchester, work is underway on multiple fronts to plan for another successful school year. There was a needed focus through our partnership with the Collaborative for Educational Services on early literacy, which many of you have followed the progress of that during the course of this year. We've also experienced further growth in our special education and multi-language learner populations, and that comes with cost as well. Collective bargaining is currently underway with all 5 of our units, with expected finalization of those contracts during this fiscal year. We continue our history of operating lean with minimal reserves, missing key support staff that other comparative districts have, and that has an impact on the student offerings and programs that Winchester is able to have as well. As many of you are aware, municipal inflation continues to significantly outpace Proposition 2.5's tax revenues as our needs grow after this unprecedented situation. Winchester Public Schools, in the midst of all that, are working hard to hone their practices and identify places where we can have efficiencies. In curriculum and instruction, we've been listening to all of our stakeholders. Obviously, the elementary literacy report is one part of that. And where we're at right now with that is that teachers, a committee of teachers, are working to select an elementary English language arts pilot curriculum suite. So that's different English language arts curricula that they're going to be evaluating for fiscal year 2026. There's also been an expressed need for outside experts to come in and provide professional learning opportunities. And we've also gone out to the community. We've determined resource needs through a new tool that the district is using called Thought Exchange. Departments have come in to present to school committee around special education and elementary mathematics, and we will continue the work to determine what our departments need.
Mr. Matthews, do you need more time?
Yes, I will
How
need
much?
an extra 5 minutes, please, with town
Okay.
meetings.
Motion to grant 5 minutes to the speaker. All those in favor? Any opposed? The ayes have it.
Thank you. We're continuing with our approach in finance and administration with enrollment-based budgeting. We're building all of our positions from the ground up and using our expense accounts, evaluating our expense accounts to identify trends for every line item. So this is really a position control to track all of our FTEs. We're engaging in better transparency and ease of state reporting by allocating costs to appropriate cost centers. Examples of that are transportation, allocation of step and column moves on our contracts. We also have gotten feedback from educators, the community, and students to drive an effort to develop priorities and investments over a 5-year horizon. It's really important to note that our district every year works hard to land a complex multi-million-dollar budget on a very short and narrow runway. And our planful and accurate budgeting has resulted over recent years in minimal turnbacks and no emergency requests for dollars. Now, it's going to be very hard for me to try and explain how we created our budget without the slide, so perhaps it may actually be best for me to just refer you to the slide when my deck is sent out. But the school committee is requesting for fiscal year 26 a budget of $70.4 million, which represents a 6.46% year-over-year increase. And that is just to maintain existing services, as well as to do 2 additional things. One is to address schedule challenges that some of you may know about at McCall Middle School due to the use of shared specialist teachers across buildings. And the other one is to add 0.5 FTE math interventionists at each of our 5 elementary schools. The school committee also has voted to fund the fiscal year 25 elementary literacy pilot program and professional development, which is $455,000 as part of Article 28. And with an affirmative vote of town meeting, that would be used only for literacy work. It's important to know that most of our costs, that's over 80% in the year-over-year increase, are driven solely to maintain current services. Our educators and students are very aware of the gaps that Winchester students face. I hope that you'll all click on and listen to the video from a student in grade 3 at Morocco Elementary School that I was able to get after going to the school's share fair last week. He was very passionate about a school-based improvement around more field trip time and said very clearly that enrichment activities, both in and out of school, are currently paid by individual parent-teacher associations and often necessitate additional parent contributions. And that's something that we're hoping to address on a longer list of items with our Winchester Public Schools 2030 plan. Recent years have really taught us a lesson that we need to work together to ensure that every student receives equitable access to learning supports and enrichment opportunities that empower them to succeed. So in order to put our strategic vision together, we engaged with multiple virtual and in-person stakeholder engagements covering teachers, administrators, parents, and students, and had a high engagement rate across groups. Leadership then consolidated that feedback and aligned it to our 3 biggest goals, which are around teaching and learning, community culture and well-being, and operations systems and supports, to put together this very neat graphic, which unfortunately you can't see, which is a 3+ year plan to invest planfully, conservatively, and strategically in our schools. But making these targeted, thoughtful, and strategic investments in Winchester's children requires your commitment. We recognize and honor those who've tirelessly advocated for Winchester students and built the town's solid reputation for excellent public education. This year's budget represents the first step in a multi-year plan to rebalance our town's commitment to all its students. Our surveys of different stakeholders have uncovered the most salient priorities for strengthening education in Winchester, and we applaud the Select Board for using its statutory authority to convene a State of the Town Committee and begin planning for an operating override vote. But despite challenging financial headwinds, Winchester should not shy away from building a next-generation infrastructure to serve the many students who call this town home. In closing, I'd like to say that I ran for school committee because as an educator, a psychologist, and most importantly, a parent to 2 young children, I care so deeply about ensuring that every child in our community has access to the best possible education. We all know a child who's had a journey through schools that hasn't always been the most smooth, who maybe didn't get every concept in reading or math, who's diagnosed with something that requires additional services, who's struggled with mental health. COVID was an unprecedented shock to the education system that was felt here in Winchester, nationally and globally, and the system continues to be tested by these unprecedented years. All children deserve a fair shot at success, and we, as Winchester's representative elected body, have the chance to commit to providing an equitable opportunity for every student in Winchester and maintain this town's well-earned reputation for great public education. Thank you so much for listening. I do hope you'll review the longer presentation that we had for tonight. This was very stressful to do without the deck behind me, but I thank you very much in advance for your consideration and look forward to talking to you more about our budget in the nights to come.
Thank you. Up next is Beth Rudolph, the town manager.
Thank you. Good evening, town meeting. I also have some nice slides that you will hopefully be able to look at online after this evening's presentation. I first want to start by congratulating our former DPW operations manager, Mike Wise, on his retirement earlier this month. Mr. Wise served the town for over 30 years and had his hand in many areas of our public works program, including snow removal and paving. He will be greatly missed, and our DPW is currently interviewing candidates for his replacement. As you will hear several times over the course of this meeting, FY26 has proved to be a very challenging budget year with a growing structural deficit. Our municipal department heads made several reasonable new staffing requests, including an additional custodian at the new Lynch Elementary School. However, the manager's budget presented in February represented a level service budget that did not account for any new positions. The only staffing change was an increase in the hours for inspectors in the building department from 20 to 25 hours per week to keep pace with existing workloads. In September of 2024, the town's free cash balance was certified by DOR at just over $24 million. This amount was reduced by appropriations at fall town meeting, leaving a current balance of approximately $21 million. This spring, just over $1.22 million is being requested for a variety of uses. If all the articles pass and no additional free cash is used to balance the FY26 budget, the remaining total unappropriated free cash balance will be approximately $19.75 million. I would show you a few slides with some historical information, but I'll just speak to them, and hopefully you'll will be able to visualize what I'm able to summarize. The first slide that I had presented this evening had a historical summary of our free cash usage for the operating budget and other uses since fiscal year 2010. Free cash for the usage for the operating budget in each fiscal year represented on that slide, and that nice figure, the amount needed to balance the budget in the subsequent years. So for example, in FY10, we used just over $2.2 million to balance the budget in FY11. Prior to the override in 2019, the town used on average $1.27 million in free cash annually to balance the budget, which closely tracks with the historical average annual turnbacks. In 2010, the Select Board adopted an operating reserves policy that targeted reserves to be between 6% and 10% of estimated general fund revenues. On the slide that you would see now, it showed the historical operating reserve percentages from 2015 through 2024. Our reserves have steadily grown from FY20, where we were at approximately 11.9%, to 20% at the end of FY24. We are currently projecting a decline in operating reserves at the end of FY25 from where we were at the end of FY24. As previously noted, FY26 was a challenging budget season due to several factors. Primarily among them was the unexpected growth in the town's health insurance. Over the past 3 years, the town has implemented several measures to control our costs, including changing medical and dental insurance providers and implementation of a Medicare buyback program for our retirees. Our health insurance provider originally quoted a renewal rate of 10% for active employees in fall of 2024. However, when the actual rate increase came in early February, it was nearly 19%. Since then, the town has issued an RFP for a new provider to test the market, but had no respondents. Ultimately, the Select Board opted to adopt MGL Chapter 32B, Sections 21 through 23, which allowed us to benchmark our plan against the State Group Insurance Commission, or GIC. This resulted in savings of almost $600,000, of which 25% is required to be shared with subscribers. This will be discussed further as part of Article 27. It's not all bad news, though. Our current actuarial study shows that the town will have our last amortization payment on our unfunded pension liability in FY27, which is right around the corner. The town has been working diligently over many years to fully fund this liability. I'm happy to say that the end is in sight. In 2023, the Select Board adopted a policy to redirect this so-called pension windfall towards the town's OPEB liability trust funds. Voters last approved an operating override in spring of 2019, which was in place for FY20. The operating override was projected to last 2 to 3 years, and since that time, the town has been able to implement financial controls to stretch that override over 6 fiscal years into FY26. However, as predicted in prior budget scenarios, the structural deficit between revenues and expenses has continued to grow, and the FY26 budget will rely on the use of one-time reserves, including overlay funds and free cash, to close the gap. Future year projections show this structural deficit will grow to unsustainable levels in the near term, leading to the need to consider an operating override. As discussed by Ms. Pryor, the Select Board will be convening a State of the Town Committee to evaluate the town's financial path forward. Finally, I want to take a moment to highlight several ongoing initiatives in town. Related to affordable housing, the town recently completed an update to our housing production plan, which was approved by the state last month and is good through March of 2030. The state also recently updated our subsidized housing inventory. Our current percent of subsidized housing is 4.89%, an increase from the previous 3.1%. This list now includes all the 40B units that were constructed as part of the Cambridge and River Street developments. The Select Board also recently signed an updated land development agreement with the developers for the town-owned property at the corner of Washington and Swan Street. The applicant is expected to submit their 40B permit application this week. As proposed, the project includes 60 market rate units, rental units, of which 2 units must be affordable to households earning at or below 60% AMI, and 14 units must be affordable to households earning at or below 80% AMI. And finally, the town is also wrapping up an economic development study that was funded through a state earmark, and we are in the early stages of working with our consultant on an update to the town's website to include recommendations from the communication study that was completed last fall. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Megan, do you need the projector? All right, you think we can do it? All right, we're going to jump in and try to... We can start the whole thing over if everybody wants to vote that way. Just let's give it 2 minutes. Yes. Okay. The school committee would like everybody to know their presentation is live on the Winchester Public Schools website at the top.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of the 8 have been emailed.
And the rest of the presentations have been emailed to all the town meeting members. That's me.
Okay, well, that's good.
Can you switch to 2?
Two.
Yep. Okay, so now I have it on 1, so you should be ready. Plug in. This is V voter. Yep, that's the V voter.
This one's 2 and this one's 3.
That's 3, 2.
Okay,
One.
that's one.
Yep.
All right, and it's still not.
Yep.
Switches to. Should we bring people up here and then is that the podium? No?
Good? Okay. Mike, do we have first slides?
So, I just sent them. Oh, Cocker, there we go. Perfect. That's,
Anybody have this in the bingo cards that's going around right now? Projector problems wasn't a bingo item?
and just, perfect.
And it's,
God.
you have the clicker here as well.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, now we'll hear from the Committee on Government Regulations and the chair, co-chair, Megan Blackwell. Yep,
Still not.
it's not working.
Oh, we were so close.
Well, let's proceed. I don't think it's going to happen.
Okay. I was convinced that it would work for me because I have no budget slides in my deck, so they're smiling on me. So thank you, Mr. Moderator. Good evening, Town Meeting, Select Board, Finance Committee, Town Manager, other staff. So tonight, acting as the co-chair with Colin Simpson of the Committee on Government Regulations / Decennial Review Committee, I'll talk to you about what our committee has done over the past few months. So as I told you in the fall, our committee has one member from each precinct, and we've spent the summer and the fall reviewing all 24 chapters of the bylaws. And tonight, I'm summarizing those months of hard work. So we held 22 public meetings. We received input from at least 10 boards and committees, 10 staff, several private citizens, and we reviewed all chapters, but not the newest chapter 25, which is the CPA chapter recently voted, or any of the zoning bylaws. So our work, our members split up, and we were designated as a primary reviewer on 3 chapters and as a secondary reviewer on 3 different chapters. The town clerk helped us throughout the process, and our work culminated in a report, the Decennial Review Report, which was published on the town's website on the 18th of March. So we submitted 18 warrant articles, which will extend your town meeting just a bit. All changes were reviewed with town council. 15 of these articles concern chapter amendments. 1 is the deletion of a chapter, and 2 are simple and concern formatting, so changing footnotes and numbering. 8 bylaw chapters were recommended to be left as is. I wanted to review with you the types of changes that we proposed. So the bulk are just minor edits that don't really change existing practices. So this is correcting spelling, grammar, alphabetizing lists, removing gendered pronouns, formatting, removing or updating archaic language. Then there's another category of changes that are amendments to reflect current practices. For example, now the town uses its websites much more than bulletin boards to publish notices and updates. And then there's a category of desired practices, as expressed by boards, committees, other informed members, and we try to condense that into the articles that you'll hear in future town meeting nights. Since I wasn't able to show the slide, I wanted to recognize our committee. Precinct 1 is Mary Crowley. Precinct 2 is Ed Levesque. Precinct 3, Karen Connolly. Precinct 4, Steve Boksansky. Precinct 5, Colin. Precinct 6, Joan Miller. I'm Precinct 7, and then Precinct 8, Dawn Bradford. Thank you all for your hard work, and thank you, town meeting, for your continued attention.
Thank you very much. Just in time for the projector, the Education Facility Planning and Building Committee, Chris Nixon.
Good evening, everyone. Aren't I special? Let's see if this works. Ms. Pryor, don't despair. I do have some photos of the gym floor. They're not as recent as the ones that were sent to you. All right, let me just try this. Good. Looks like that's working. So good evening, everybody. My name is Chris Nixon. I'm the Vice Chair of the Educational Facilities Planning and Building Committee. That is your standing school building committee established by town meeting over 20 years ago. It's a couple of updates, well, 3 updates for you, 3 projects spread across 2 buildings. Let me first focus on what's going on here at the Winchester High School. 2 things to update you on. So returning and veteran town meeting members are well aware that going back to the fall of 23, it was actually initially a request on the part of the EFPBC. We got $100,000 to begin some investigation into concrete deterioration that we were seeing in some limited areas on the first floor slab at the high school. We came back to you jointly with the Capital Planning Committee in the fall. We got $845,000 in funding to actually produce a set of bid documents following some lengthy testing and analysis in which we determined the pathways that were contributing to the deterioration of concrete. Again, those of you who are returning to town meeting are well aware that the deterioration in limited areas of the first floor were found to be sort of caused by carbonation contamination in some areas below the first floor slab in the crawl space, and up above in some, again, limited areas, deterioration that was the result of chlorides, literally salts. So what can I tell you has happened since we last saw you? So first of all, thank you for the funding so that we could proceed with step 1, which was the release of the bid documents and to get contractors on board to treat the underside of the first floor slab. The project was bid about 2.5 months ago. There was a high level of interest, strong turnout among contractors. Not sure how well we can actually see this photograph. If you can't, our own Chris Conway is there in the background, spelunking around literally below where you're sitting today, with many contractors who are checking out the work. So a couple of things to share. When we last met in the fall, we asked you for $845,000. So that was for a couple of things. That was to actually release the bid package and get to work on the underside of the first floor slab. But we also had in that request some additional monies to take conceptual engineering a step further to a bid set to address the top side deterioration. The work came in, the low bid came in higher than we would have liked, but still well within the 845 appropriation you gave us. And so we felt comfortable on the advice of management to actually award that contract. Management is in the process with engineering and executing that contract. Perhaps it'll be signed within a week, so that's the good news. Because that came in a little bit high, however, 6 months ago, though I didn't tell you how much we were thinking, I'll tell you now, we were thinking we'd come back and ask for around $360 from you this spring. We did say we'd be back seeking money for topside repair for substantially less than the $845 we had initially requested. And so what you'll see under the capital article later at this town meeting is an ask of $450,000 to get that work done. Real quickly on the gymnasium reflooring and reconfiguration, you understand why we're doing the work. The floor had simply worn out and was coming apart, and we saw reason to actually redesign the space to turn the room 90 degrees to better serve multiple sports and accommodate more spectators. And in fact, we can accommodate up to 1,500 for a major event postseason if we so wish, and we can divide that space into quarters for breakout practices. This was a couple of weeks ago. Boy, I wish we had. Yeah, you're not going to be able to see it here, but maybe in the Zoom, in this detail you can. This gentleman is driving what I call like a powered knife. This machine weighs hundreds of pounds, has a sharp blade, and what you're seeing is he's literally digging into the floor. Those are just strips of flooring that comes up with the rubberized surface and the adhesive. And this is what you got when we're done. We got to scrape it all away, but we get bare concrete. And on that, of course, we're going to put the maple athletic floor. So we're off to the races. Our goal is to have the space ready for the start of school. I also want to put a shout out to Dennis Mahoney and the John and Mary Murphy Foundation, and I believe the Winchester High School Parents and Faculty Association, who stepped up with some generous donations. This graduating class of Winchester High School will not be in this gym. They're going to be at Symphony Hall, and they're going to have some great memories for years to come. So thank you to everybody for chipping in. What a great opportunity that will be. For the next graduating class, they're going to love the new gym. Very quickly, on to the new Lynch. You've seen some of these images before, renderings of what the gymnasium would look like. I shared this with you a year ago. This is what it looked like 2 weeks ago. So I'd say we're pretty much meeting your expectations based on the renderings of the space. The new Lynch does an amazing job integrating with the site in a way the original building never did. Those of you who are familiar with the site know that the Lynch fields were sort of cut off from the rest of the site. This building makes a very deliberate attempt to engage the Lynch fields, and it does so not only in the way it's sited on the property, but as well some of the windows, the views from the spaces for the children that we're especially excited about. The roof of Lynch is complete. The rooftop units are on. It is ready for solar. I can tell you all of the solar panels have arrived. They're on site. They're not on the building yet, but they have arrived. You see the purlins here from about a week ago going up on the ground-mounted canopies, so they're about ready to receive their solar panels. And here we have a view of the wing closest to Horn Pond Brook. This is our third floor outdoor classroom. Has a solar canopy up above, and that inset image is actually the soil that was being placed Thursday at both ends of it. So we're going to have a green roof and some areas there for the kids as well. Interiors, you've seen a lot from me on interiors previously, but the work just continues, and it's very exciting. I just want to close a couple of comments here on finances. I'm sorry the justification is a little messed up here. Our estimate for Lynch, going back a couple of years ago, was a base bid of around $67.6 million. The actual bid result came in almost $2 million below that. There were a couple of add alternates. We had some safety rails on the roof and two add alternates associated with solar on the roof and on the site, which Ms. Pryor did a fantastic job presenting. We estimated that the solar work was going to cost about 2.2, and it also came in under budget. So our actual bid results have been very favorable on Lynch. We have very healthy and conservative contingencies that I would suggest the EFPBC and the OPM have done really a good job managing throughout the process. I will tell you that since we last saw you in the fall, the last 2 appropriations have been made on the Lynch project. Fixtures, furnishings, and equipment, what we call in the industry FF&E, is the stuff. If you could pick up a building, turn it upside down, and shake it, all the stuff that falls out is what we call FF&E. We had a budget of $2.9 million. We actually awarded it for $2,900,908,004. So I'll say that was right on budget. And then we just awarded the MOVE RFP 2 weeks ago, and that also came in under budget, which is great news. 2 key dates to share with you. Substantial completion. We are 2 months away, so that's when we'll be out there with punch lists, and August 1st, the movers show up. So we're very, very excited about the progress.
How much time do you need left?
I have 60 seconds,
Okay.
Mr. Moderator. COVID prohibited us from a longstanding tradition. When we did the E-Wing edition in 2020, we were really unable to open the doors for public tours. We did that for VO, we did it for the high school, we did it for the E-Wing in 2009, and we're looking forward to finding a date where we can open up the new Lynch so you all can just see what a wonderful project this has been. I want to thank everybody who's a member of the EFPBC and recognize Brendan Driscoll, who has joined us again after serving for many years. He filled a vacancy. And I also want to just recognize Meg White from Engineering and Planning, Andrew Marin, who's the district's Director of Finance and Operations, Frida Canavan, who helps us with meeting minutes, and Aaron Allen, who's fantastic working in the background to keep our virtual meetings running smoothly. We couldn't really function without these 4 folks. So I appreciate your attention. It's very exciting what's going on. We really appreciate your enthusiasm and support in making continued investments in the school's facilities. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Mr. Nixon. Next up, we'll hear from David Miller, representing the Winchester Committee on Community Preservation.
Left, right. Or you can just use the arrow keys, whatever works for you.
Hi, everyone. David Miller. I'm here representing the Winchester Committee on Community Preservation, of which I'm the chair, and we wanted to take the opportunity to sort of give you guys an update as to where we are in our process with the committee. So getting us all sort of on the same page, as you will almost certainly remember, the CPA was approved by town in November 2024. It's now the law, Article 25. What comes with this is a 1.5% surcharge on property taxes, with a few exceptions. It's estimated that in FY 2026, there'll be about $1.6 million in real estate receipts, collections. This year, there is not a state match. That does not start till FY 2027. We have to be in operations for a year before that starts. The WCCP is the group that receives applications and judges them and rank orders them. Town meeting is the group that approves the actual final appropriations for this. Presumably, most of you will remember how this all works. Of the total amount of receipts that we receive, 10% goes into each of open space and recreation, affordable housing, and historical preservation. The remainder goes into a general fund, of which as much as 5% maximum can be used for administrative costs for the group to get its job done. I'll be talking about this quite a bit more in Article 30. So what's the group up to? Currently, we're developing what we call our community preservation plan. That is, how are we going to operate? How will we conduct our processes, the practical considerations? How will we solicit applications? How will we review them? How will we rank order them? How will we ultimately present them to town meeting? But first, we also have to get an understanding of what are the town's needs. And so for that process, we're currently developing our plans for reaching out to the community, gathering information, actively doing so, and we're going to be doing that in a way which has both an understanding of the near-term and the long-term potential applications of CPA funds for the betterment of the community. In terms of a timeline, we've adopted that we're going to be focused on one annual presentation to town meeting, excuse me, and that will be the fall. We've done that with a lot of consideration and talking with other groups, particularly Town Hall, capital planning. This is the calendar which helps us maximize our process with regard to coordinating with the capital planning process. However, intermediate funding is possible as you look long-term, the many years this will be happening. While there'll be a focus on town meeting, it's certainly possible that there may be presentations for appropriations at town meeting in spring as well. Our outreach to the community begins in the fall of this year, 2025. We expect pre-applications to be happening early 2026 and full applications spring 2026. So it'll be a two-step process to get people in the door and then to refine those applications in a second application round, and then we begin our deliberation process on the second round applications. And then they'll be reviewed and prioritized to be presented at fall 2026 town meeting. So we'll look forward to that. In terms of our needs assessment and outreach, there are sort of the fixed documents we can look at: master plan, open space and recreation plan, housing production plan, capital planning. So some of those standard reports that the town has produced over the years, and of course on a yearly basis. But we'll also be conducting public hearings. That's part of the requirement, but of course it's a critical element to understanding what the community thinks are good ways to disperse these funds. We'll be meeting with appropriate committee boards, and we'll be getting ideas from other municipalities. There are several hundred other towns which have had this process underway for a number of years, and understanding how they wisely spent their money, I think, will be a good lesson for us. And so all these learnings are going to go into our preparation plan and serve as a element in how we consider the proposals that come before us. In terms of our members, Andy Eichelberg, Chris Nixon, Christina Marshall, myself, James Harris, Jason Capodanno, John Cortizas, Julie Broderick, Michelle Bergstrom, and Beth Rudolph. We had a training with the state's Coalition on Community Preservation. Those are sort of a state agency which helps groups get started, and their comment was that we had gone faster than any other community in terms of getting this thing at least started. Certainly not finished, but started. And I thank this group for the work they've done to get that to that stage. So, all right. Thank you. And on the next one.
Thank you very much, Mr. Miller, and we're going to hear from him again on the Permanent Tree Committee report. And that will be the last Article 1 report.
I'm also David Miller, representing the Tree Committee, of which I am chair, which is why I'm doing this twice. So, it's been a transformative year for the future of Winchester's trees, and we wanted to make sort of a bold statement. We quantified what is unfortunately the declining status of Winchester's public trees, and I'll give you some data on that. And we've also, working with the Select Board, developed some new regulations which we think will help reverse this trend of tree loss. We've come up with this figure. Like all figures, it's just a figure. But we think it actually helps make much clearer than usual figures as to the importance of trees. And we brought it down to three elements: economics, health, and environment, putting economics at the top. And the point we really want to make is the economic benefits that a town such as Winchester gets from the presence of trees, and the economic losses we take as a result of not having trees. And at your leisure, study this more closely, but many, many elements in Winchester, real estate values, are critically dependent upon the presence of trees. So we recently had done, with the help of the Select Board, an ARPA grant, and town manager, an analysis of Winchester's tree canopy. We worked with a software company who has access to satellite data from 2012, 2018, and 2023. They took a look down at Winchester's trees, and they crunched it through some sophisticated software, which, yes, involves AI. But they get some results which I think are very compelling and put us on a firm footing to understand where we are with regard to our canopy. And let's see if you can see that. So this is Winchester broken down into hexagons, which is sort of a normal way to tessellate a GIS-based map. And the lighter color is no trees, and the darker color is trees. And what you can see better if you had a better projector, sorry guys, is that there are lots of light areas in town. There are lots of places in Winchester which have no trees, like in 0 trees. Sorry, that's a standalone shot from 2023. This is now looking at the changes between, 2012 and 2023, where it's pretty hard to see, so apologies. If you can't see it, the brown, is up to a 70% loss of Winchester's trees over the 2012-2023 period. The green is a gain of trees, as much as 100%. So there are places where we're gaining trees, to be sure. But there are many places where we've lost a lot of trees in town. And this one, a little bit harder, perhaps, to make out. But we have the GIS coordinates of Winchester's streets. And so that gets at the public trees in town. And what this shows, if you can see it, and it's primarily the flats area, but it extends all over town, is brown, and the brown indicates an 8% loss of Winchester's trees in just 5 years. So most of the flats has lost 5% of its trees on average in just the last 5 years, and it extends to other parts of town as well. So that's a real number. That's a lot of trees in a few years, and that's the direction it's going. This was 2023. With that kind of rate, this being 2025, I wouldn't care to guess what the number is, but it's, we all know, not gotten less. So currently, trees, specifically the planting of trees, do not appear as a line item in the town budget. It is handled ad hoc without a funding or planting target or strategy. But now, working with the select board, and we've been a very cooperative relationship, we've developed some regulations to the town's tree bylaw, which we think will begin to make a difference. These were passed in April of this year. They call for an inventory of public trees to be conducted no less than every 3 years and results reported to the select board. So sort of this process at least every 3 years. It also defines that there will be no net loss in the number of public trees or tree canopy. So give that a thought for a second, no net loss. The way that's operationalized is it says the town will adopt, to the extent possible, an operational stance of regular tree planting in support of achieving the no net loss goal. So we have to be active in planting trees. It's a little open-ended in terms of time frame, a little bit of compromise, but the reality is we have a no net loss goal to our tree canopy, and we have steps by which we can take to make up that difference. So these are the members of the tree committee, and it includes a number of members of town hall who are participants in our activities. So it's been a great group to work with, and we think, as I said there at the beginning, we've made some significant strides in understanding where we are with regard to our tree canopy, and some rules now that'll help us begin to remedy that situation. So I'll stop there.
Thank you very much. That one reports. It is moved and seconded that the reports of town officials, boards, committees, and commissions be received and filed. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. Hearing none, the motion carries. So now, in accordance with our bylaws, we will take a break to conduct our precinct meetings. Each precinct has been assigned a meeting room in the high school on the first floor, and those will be posted outside. As has been the tradition as well, the Girl Scouts are outside and have some refreshments and snacks for everybody. So it is 8 o'clock now. We'll reconvene at 8:25.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Alan Iden. We're here in the Winchester High School for the first session of Winchester's Spring 2025 Town Meeting. Town meeting's in recess right now for some precinct meetings, so let's take a look at what we've heard so far. Of course, by our charter regulations, the first article is the report of town boards. Let's go back a little bit. We have a new moderator, Philip Frattaroli, who commented that the moderators in Winchester turn over less frequently than popes. There are a total of 56 articles in this warrant. 12 of them are consent articles. If you have your warrant, you could look at Articles 2, 8, 9, 11, 12, 13, 15, 26, 29, 32, 34, and 35. Basically, consent articles are articles that are reasonably not expected to have any debate. So town meeting can and did pass them all on a voice vote. There were some opening comments that about the country celebrating its 250th anniversary, and also that 175 years ago tomorrow, the Charter of Winchester, on Wednesday, April 30th, 1850, the Charter for the town of Winchester was signed. So Winchester celebrating its 175th. Winchester Historical Society is planning a number of events around that, which you can find out at their website. We pause for a moment to remember the passing of two longtime town participants, Chuck Nuremberger, who was on the select board, and James Johnson, who was involved in many things in town day committee. He was on the select board for 18 years and capital planning, many others. Sudden loss of Mr. Johnson. Town meeting gave a moment of silence in respect for both Chuck Nuremberger and James Johnson. So, preliminary motions were passed, which involved just your cable television coverage, and who could sit up at the front, whether they were or were not a town meeting member. Again, pretty much routine. So the reports began with Michelle Pryor from the Select Board. Now I will comment that there's about $50,000 worth of new equipment and technology in here, and as probably could be expected, something didn't work, and that was the projector. So a lot of the presentations were done without slides. We managed to get through it all right, but we look forward to having that repaired hopefully by the next session. So we heard from Michelle Pryor, the chair of the Select Board. She talked about the Morocco Culvert project, which again is part of the flood mitigation. That's I didn't make a note, but I think that's about $3.5 million. The town is looking to appropriate money to extend the life of town assets, and talked about some of the issues going on with the proposed redevelopment of the Mill Pond building in Converse Place. Said the Select Board was focusing on developing new housing, and also facing the challenges of increasing health insurance costs, looking for new revenue sources, and cost cutting. The Finance Committee Chair commented on lack of capital investments, said the town should be spending $21 million per year on capital investments. This year the budget is running a $4.6 million deficit. He also commented on the need to maintain the town's credit rating, and as an example said the reconstruction of the Morocco School could cost $5 million more with a quarter-point drop in the town's interest rate. School committee talked about the goals of education, proud of the support of the students, commented on strikes in other towns that have hindered education, and said they were examining every line of the school department budget, which is $70.4 million, a 6% increase, again, as they said, just to maintain the current level of education. Our last report was from, it was not the last report, Beth Rudolph, town manager. She commented on the retirement of Mike Wise, the operations director of the DPW, and his devotion to the town. Said he will be missed. FY26 is a challenge. We've gone from 24 million to 21 million in free cash, but with the demands being put on the budget, that will probably end up around 19 million next year. She said there was a 19% increase in health insurance, so they're looking for a new provider. The town currently has about 4.9% affordable housing stock and needs to work on that. The town is also working on the development of the property that the town owns at the corner of Washington and Swanton Streets. Committee on Government Regulations has a bunch of articles here. They said they spent the summer and fall reviewing the regulations, and all changes have been reviewed by Town Council. We next heard from EFPBC, Educational Facilities Planning and Building Committee Chair Chris Nixon. Spoke about some of the repairs ongoing or about to be ongoing here at the high school, concrete deterioration in the crawl space underneath the school. Commented on the current rebuilding project of the gym, which is to replace the floor and completely reconfigure the gym to allow for more spectator participation. It should be ready for the fall, but the 2025 high school graduation will be held at Symphony Hall and not in the gym. Comment on Lynch. The Lynch School is on schedule, and some of the items have come in under budget. He said there is full solar on the roof and on the canopies over the parking lot, and it also has a green roof, so outdoor space within the building. Several items came in under budget, and there will be public tours sometime probably in August. The new CPA committee, Community Preservation Act Committee, is funded by a property tax surcharge, as in about, I believe the comment was about 110 other towns. Recreation, housing, and community preservation, and also other, an open category there, the funds will be used for those projects. Beginning next year, those funds, which I think I saw were about $1.6 million, will be matched by the state. Not this year, because the committee has to establish their goals and their expenditures. The applications for CPA funds are due next spring to be appropriated next fall by town meeting. There will be public hearings, and it said the state that trained the committee said we started faster than most communities. And last, before recess, we heard from the chair of the Permanent Street Tree Committee on the declining status of trees in Winchester, commented on the benefit of the trees, including on the real estate values in town. The committee did a rather technical tree canopy analysis, showed some maps, showed some of the gains and losses in tree canopy in Winchester, and commented there was an 8% loss in the last 5 years, and they're going to be working to reverse that trend. That is it. That's what we've heard in the first half. No motions or anything like that. No articles except Article 1 covered. So we will be back. I will be back. Our whole crew will be back with a recap of the meeting tonight at the end of the meeting. So please stay tuned.
please have your seat. Take your seats. Hello? Hello? Okay. So P for president.
P for president. Yes.
So is it yes?
Checking where they are, and you just
What do I say? Yeah, we're calling the meeting back to order. Please take your seats. Yeah. The meeting will come to order. Thank you. Okay, everyone, the meeting will come to order. Because the projector wasn't working at the onset of the meeting, we took attendance. We know there's a quorum, but we'd like everybody to do a sample test of their clickers to make sure that we have them all working. So we're going to open up V-Voter in a second. The green light will come on, and I'd like everybody to vote 1 for present. Over your screen. Yeah, yeah. The meeting will come to order. Thank you all for that. I just want to remind everybody it is a little late. We have a lot to get through. We have a historically long warrant, so with your cooperation, we can proceed to Article 3. On page 4 of the Winchester Spring Annual Town Meeting Articles, Motions and black background booklet with the green cover. On behalf of the Planning Board, Chairman Brian Naclia.
Just tab it to get through. Perfect. Thank you very much. Members of the Select Board, Finance Committee, Town Meeting members, Mr. Frateroli. My name is Brian Vernalia, and I'm delighted to stand before you tonight to present the report of the Planning Board. While the Planning Board is required to report to town meeting, I know we have many articles, and I'm going to try to be really fast, so Michelle is going to time me.
Go.
I'd like to start by thanking the members of the Planning Board and the Planning Department. On the board side, I'd like to thank John Cortizes, our new Vice Chair, welcome Jacqueline Ménager, our newest member and new clerk, thank Carrie Layton, our prior Chair Extraordinaire, and Nick Rosettos, the veteran of the board, having served now for 3 years. So yes, we are a very young board. On the staff side, we are fortunate to have Taylor Herman and Ian Sexton as planner and assistant planner leading the way. And last, but most certainly not least, Suzanne Gill, who keeps the bills paid and the documents signed. Not listed here are recently retired elder statesman Dieb Jarius. A huge thank you to Dieb for his 9 years of service. During his time, he served with 14 other members, oversaw countless zoning initiatives, and even stepped up when we were between town planners and kept the department running. Thank you. People often ask, what does the planning board do? The iceberg analogy is a good one, and I assure you that this is a friendly iceberg, not like the one that took out the SS Capitol a few years back. From town meeting's perspective, you see that we propose and revise bylaw changes. And for certain, that takes a lot of our time. What you don't see is all the things that take place under the water, so to speak. First of all, we love acronyms. We serve as special permit granting authority in the Center Business District, the Main Street Mixed Use District, and the MBTA 3A Overlay District. Any petitions in these areas come before us for a review and decision. Beyond that, we make recommendations on petitions before the Zoning Board of Appeals everywhere else in town. We administer subdivision control law throughout the town, and we enact regulations as allowed by our bylaws, and more. 2024 was a very busy year on all fronts. At this time a year ago, you helped pass our MBT 3A Overlay District, or MOD. I'm excited to report that as of February 6th, we have been declared in full compliance. Design guidelines will be developed to help shape projects in this district. At the time of passage, we were unable to support the same inclusionary housing requirements that we had in the Central Business District and have since developed in North Main Street. We pledged to do our best to make this a reality. We'd hoped to bring you a revised bylaw to you this spring. Delays in acquiring the funding to secure the consultants, which was ultimately approved by you at Fall Town Meeting, thank you, means we're finally able to get that work underway. But later than we'd hoped. While it's not finalized, in draft form it looks like we will be able to support a revision to align our inclusionary housing requirements across districts. And the analysis is substantially under budget. Stay tuned. Last fall, you helped pass our new Main Street Mixed Use District. This is an exciting new revision to our zoning bylaw, which will aim to enliven the northern part of Main Street and provide an alternative to the MBTA 3A overlay that encourages mixed-use developments as opposed to multifamily housing alone. The bylaw was approved by the Attorney General's office, and as allowed in the bylaw, we have prepared design standards. We are excitedly awaiting submissions, and there will be more on that later on. Lastly, last fall, you passed a revision to our 2022 ADU bylaw that was necessary to match state law. Approval of that change is still pending with the Attorney General, and guidelines by the state were only just released in February of this year. There may be slight modifications required. Again, stay tuned. So where does this leave us now? After passing 2 major zoning initiatives and revising a 3rd one, we have a pause. Rest assured, all of those activities taking place underwater on our friendly iceberg continue. But this year, for the first time in a while, we have no major zoning initiatives. There are 2 zoning articles listed in the warrant. The first is sponsored by the Planning Board. It is for FEMA floodplain remapping. The Planning Board voted in public hearing 5-0 to sponsor this article on behalf of the Engineering Department. This revision is topographical only and might remove some houses from the floodplain, saving residents money, but this article shouldn't be confused with the ongoing flood mitigation program, which should result in substantial revisions to the floodplain map based on the multi-year program. Given that none of us on the board are civil engineers, when Article 4 comes around, you will hear from the Engineering Department, not us. The second zoning article printed in the warrant is a citizen petition to rezone a portion of the ledges, Article 6. The Planning Board reviewed this article in public hearing and recommended unfavorable action by a vote of 3-1. It's usually at this slide I would go over the status of all the major multi-unit housing developments in town. In fact, all of these projects continue to move along at their own varying paces, but nothing would actually change if you just looked at this slide. Instead, I'm going to talk to you about the pipeline that I was excited about before. We've seen an uptick in pre-applications being submitted to and reviewed by the Planning Department. Developers are coming in based on the buzz surrounding MBTA 3A. But when they look into the details, as we envisioned, they're seeing that North Main Street zoning with mixed use and approved design standards is preferable. We expect to see these projects before the board in the coming months. And maybe it's too early to say we're excited, but we are excited. So where does this leave us as far as affordable housing in Winchester and our vulnerability to 40B developments? Chapter 40B Safe Harbor requires the town to have at least 10% of our housing deeded affordable. With the recent update by the state that you heard about earlier tonight, we stand now at 4.89%, and we have a long way to go. An alternative to hitting 10%, we can move into Safe Harbor if we have both an up-to-date housing production plan and generate 40 units a year. In joint session with the Select Board, we approved a revision to the housing production plan in December. However, we are not producing 40 units a year, and as of 2022, we are out of and remain out of safe harbor. So what's up for us next? We are continuing to review the light industrial zoning, Holton, Swanton, and Cross areas. This is a fantastic area with great potential for rezoning. How so? We don't actually know yet, so stay tuned. At the same time, we intend to carefully examine site plan review process. We heard loud and clear during our discussion of ADUs last fall that many see the process as too onerous. Can it be streamlined while keeping what makes it valuable? As mentioned earlier, we anticipate small revisions to the inclusionary housing requirements in our MBTA overlay district and potential small modifications to the ADO bylaw to match any new guidelines that have come out. Lastly, we have made tremendous progress towards many of the goals in the Winchester Master Plan 2030. With COVID behind us, the new town planner well on board, and the state-mandated rezoning behind us, it's time to review and reassess our progress. So I don't know where I stand on that, but thank you for your attention. You can email the entire planning board at planningboard@winchester.us. You can watch all of our meetings live on WinCam, usually the first and third Tuesdays of the month, or on demand. I usually watch the meetings double speed if I'm watching on demand, so they're a lot faster if you don't want a 4-hour meeting. Our next meeting is May 6th, and I consider this must-see TV, so I hope you're all watching. And lastly, if any of this interests you at all, please consider running for the planning board. We always need candidates. Thank you very much.
Thank you. It is moved and seconded that the report of the planning board be received and filed. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. The motion carries. Switching now to Article 5, to see if the town will vote to amend the zoning bylaw for the new flood maps. On the article, Matt Schuman, town engineer. Article 4.
Clicker right here.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. My name's Matt Schuman. I'm the town engineer in the engineering department. And tonight we're here as part of Article 4 to discuss some updates to the floodplain overlay district within the zoning bylaw. As folks are probably aware, we are a participant in the National Flood Insurance Program through FEMA, which allows residents in the town to obtain flood insurance. Flood insurance is required for most folks that have a mortgage or are in the 100-year floodplain area. In 2023, FEMA began updating flood maps within eastern Massachusetts. It wasn't just a Winchester thing, it was the entire eastern part of Massachusetts. As Brian mentioned earlier, this wasn't based on any detailed analysis. It doesn't include any of our long-term flood improvement and mitigation program. However, it did use updated topographic information, which is basically the ground elevation based on 2020 data. The previous maps were based on 2010 information. So as a result of this, there are some minor changes to the floodplain boundaries. And the maps were brought out for comment in 2023. We've been notified that they're going to be adopted and they'll be effective on July 8th, 2025. For that reason, we need to update our floodplain overlay district to reference the new maps. We also have a few minor changes to the bylaw that are required in order to comply with what's known as the state model floodplain bylaw, which is just something that the state has put out for communities to adopt. These revisions are necessary to maintain our participation in the NFIP program and to allow folks to continue to have flood insurance. The revisions were reviewed by the town legal counsel as well as the state floodplain coordinator. And with that, I'm just going to point out some of the changes and explain the rationale for some of them. So the first amendment is to reference the new maps. As I said, they're effective July 8th, 2025. We now have a Zone A, which is just another type of 100-year floodplain boundary. AE is what most of the town has. We now added in A. We've been asked to reference that in our floodway information. We have an updated definition for the floodway just to comply with the state model bylaw. It's not substantially different than what is in the bylaw already. Just a language update for clarity on one of our additional parts of the floodway. Reference again to that Zone A for recreational vehicles. We did not have prior to the 2023 revision of the maps. And just additional definitions which are added to Section 10 for highest adjacent grade, which is something that we look at in evaluating floodplain elevations and extents. And adding in the term for mining, I don't think we're going to have any mines in the floodplain in Winchester, but we are required to include that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So at this time, can we get the recommendations from the Select Board?
Select Board recommended favorable action on this article.
Thank you. Mr. Vinaglia, I assume that the Planning Board. Yeah, so favorable action on that as well. At this point, town meeting members, you may provide your comments or questions for the meeting's consideration by making your way towards one of the microphones.
I have a question. Mr. Moderator, my name's John Miller. I'm from Precinct 6. I have a question on page 6 of the motion book. It's the amended language on Section 5. I'm just curious about why that sentence was deleted. It reads, "The term development does not include the resurfacing of existing pavements by the Town of Winchester Public Works Department for maintenance and safety of roadways."
That was a comment from the state floodplain coordinator. Unfortunately, town projects are not exempt. Most resurfacing projects wouldn't be changing the elevation in the floodplain, but if for some reason there was some grading that changed elevations, it would be subject to the requirements.
So it would only kick in if there was a grade change?
Yes.
Okay, so the reason I ask is 25 years ago, a group funded the basketball courts down at McCall. There's 4 basketball courts there. They are within the floodplain, and we resurfaced them about 3 or 4 years ago. Again, outside group raised the money, and the town helped get it done. But do you think that would affect the deletion of this sentence would affect that at all, and if there's repairs required to a surface?
Typically, a resurfacing wouldn't change the elevations. A good example is we just did work at Forest and Cross Street, the intersection, last year, and we did change some of the elevations. And a result of that, we had to do some compensatory storage and just to confirm that we weren't changing any flood elevations as part of that work.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions from town meeting members? I get the sense that town meeting is ready for the question. It is moved and seconded that the town vote to amend Section 8.1 Floodplain Overlay District and Section 10 Definitions of the Winchester Zoning Bylaw to update the bylaw in accordance with the new National Flood Insurance Program guidelines as printed in the warrant under Article 4. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. Hearing none, the motion carries by a 2/3 majority, which is required of zoning. All right, now we switch to Article 5, a citizen's petition offered by the Ledges. There's a little bit of history on this article and the one that follows that I want to go through. You might recognize it from the fall. The Ledges is looking to do some splitting of their property, as they will attest to, but because they're not going forward with the motion trying to get favorable action right now, we're going to refer this. The Ledges wants to speak a little bit to the topic, and then we're going to ask for a motion to refer to committee. Mr. Bartels?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator, and thank you, town meeting members. Really, thank you for your service. As you know, As I know, you have a long agenda, and so I'm going to try and be very brief. By way of background, I've lived at the Ledges since 2016. The Ledges is a townhouse community off Wainwright Road, down by the Dunkin' Donuts at Horn Pond. I started more than a year ago as chair of a special subcommittee of the Ledges Board to help the Ledges community of 110 unit owners with the sale of a piece of land. For those of you that may be new or may not remember, last November we submitted the two warrants, one to separate a piece of land from our property and one to rezone it so it could be sold as a single-family lot. Both articles were withdrawn, and I naively thought that getting a piece of land separated and sold would be a simple process. Boy, was I wrong. The Ledges faces ongoing challenges common to aging properties, and the community was hoping to use the proceeds of this land sale towards the significant maintenance in our upcoming years. In this journey, I've come to learn a lot about the Ledges, Winchester, about the people who live here, and the town government and its rules and regulations. The Ledges was established over 40 years ago as one of two planned residential districts. Of our 110 units, more than 50% have changed ownership in the last 5 years. Because of this turnover, the demographics of our community are changing rapidly. We have 20 families and 9 school-age children. We have 6 units occupied by multi-generational families. And while many unit owners living here are over 65 years of age, many, including myself, still work. We have nurses, teachers, we have a Winchester firefighter, along with doctors and lawyers who are all residents. We have several realtors who recognize the value in the Ledges. We have people in the trades, builders, developers who make up our population. Our homes are occupied and owned by single parents, couples, and we have young and old. We have grandparents and grandchildren. Our community has become much more diverse and more reflective of the demographics of the general Winchester population. In our effort to sell this property, I've been asked how the town would benefit and who would be impacted. I've attended numerous meetings and held one-on-one discussions with town officials since last November and have addressed their questions. New procedural and zoning questions have continuously been raised along each step of my way. I've been asked to answer questions for which town officials, town boards, and town committees have no answers. Both the Ledges and the town officials have realized that further study is needed to appropriately resolve the issues that have come up. Therefore, I'm asking the action on Article 5 be tabled until further review is completed. Mr. Moderator, would you please entertain that article?
Yes, the chair will take a motion. Okay, thank you. Do I have a second? Second. Thank you. All those in, or I guess I have to restate it. Does anybody want to speak on the topic?
Diabjerius, Precinct 8. Mr. Moderator, could you please explain what this particular legislative thing we're voting on is? It's not an indefinite postponement, and I'm not familiar with this particular way of moving this article on. Could you explain what it is?
It's a motion to refer for further study. So in the course of the next however long, this topic will be further studied by a committee, and they will come back in the fall or at in a future town meeting to bring a different article.
And how does this differ from indefinite postponement?
Indefinite postponement can be viewed to be a negative action, and this is neutral.
Okay, thank you.
Because of the zoning, because of what we're going to talk about on Article 6, we didn't want there to be a negative connotation to the what town meeting does tonight, so that there would be another waiting period that this proponent has to wait. So we wanted to do something that was neutral and give them the time to get the answers that they need. And there will be for another date that town meeting can debate.
And is this sort of a strategy available to any article that comes forward?
Yeah, it's a procedure under Robert's rules, refer or commit.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from town meeting? Okay, it's moved and seconded that Article 5 be remitted to for further study. What? All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay? The motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So in furtherance of that discussion, Article 6 has been deemed not to be able to be taken up by this town meeting because in Article 6 it involves zoning, and whenever something fails as a zoning question, it's prohibited from being able to come back to town meeting for 2 years. So that's why we cannot hear Article 6. Moving on to Article 7, the proponent is Kathy Vallone.
I was.
I don't know if you're looking for slides.
I was saying I got a PDF for Article 7. So I don't know if this helps you.
She has slides?
Oh, that was just, that was a handout, so.
Okay.
That's okay. Thank you, Mr. Moderator, town meeting members, and members of boards and committees. My name is Kathy Vallone, and I submitted Article 7 to see if town meeting would vote to amend the Code of Bylaws by adding Chapter 27, which is to eliminate the use of second-generation anticoagulant rodenticides on town-owned properties. I've been involved with the Mass Audubon's campaign to rescue raptors, the EWA Rat Poison Brigade, and the Massachusetts Rodenticide Resistance Stand-Up, which is a group of peers from communities throughout the Commonwealth who are working on a similar cause. And the anticoagulant rodenticides, as many of you are aware, cause eventual bleeding out of whatever animal might ingest it. And it's a slow and painful death to the targeted rodents in this case, but non-targeted species that consume the rodents are also impacted because the rodenticides, the anticoagulants, that is, build up in the livers of the rodents, and when a raptor or other animal ingests that rodent, eventually they will succumb. And efforts towards this have stepped up since the well-publicized death of MK, the eagle on the Mystic Lakes. And I provided handouts with information on anticoagulant and non-anticoagulant rodenticides, bait boxes, as well as links to the Massachusetts regulation, which is the protection of children and families from harmful pesticides. And I also gave a link to the integrated pest management plans submitted by Winchester schools to the Massachusetts Department of Agricultural Resources. And the submission of these plans is an annual requirement. Just so you're aware, there are two bills on Beacon Hill, S644 and H965, that are also directed towards eliminating or restricting the use of anticoagulants in Massachusetts, and both are in committee. I'd like to speak very briefly about integrated pest management, which is a sensible and comprehensive combination of strategies that modify the environment to make it less attractive to rodents. And this is something that should be considered by all the town as well as homeowners. The first step is to exclude the rodents, look for sources of a problem. If there are any small openings around pipes or cables, wire outlets, garage doors, foundations, and if there's overgrown brush or plantings, these can attract rodents and allow them to enter a building. Next, starve the rodents, deprive them of food and water. In particular, food spills should be properly cleaned, and garbage cans and dumpsters should be tightly sealed. And if you ride around town and notice dumpsters that aren't, that's contributing to the problem of rodents. And then the final step is to target the rodents, to trap and remove them using non-poison traps as a first choice. There are snap traps and other devices, but please don't use glue traps. They're pretty awful. And then using the non-anticoagulant poisons as a last result. These are preferable because they do not have an impact on the livers and the rodents that eat them, and therefore, or the animals that might eat them. So when I first submitted this article, I fully intended to bring it to town meeting for a vote, and this is to codify the efforts of the Health Department and the Board of Health. They've taken a number of efforts to reduce the use of eschars, and I commend them and appreciate it. However, after I submitted this article, I learned that the Health Department has put through a budget request to pay for a study to evaluate alternatives to the use of eschars, which is second-generation anticoagulant rodenticides, and the associated costs of these alternatives. Cost information is difficult to get because it's very specific to the buildings, and you can't compare one town to another because of the age of structures, the number, et cetera, et cetera. I support the budget request, and I encourage favorable action on it. But to allow for the completion of this study and to understand the cost specific to Winchester of alternatives to the use of eschars, I move to indefinitely postpone Article 7.
Thank you. Is there a second? Thank you. Any town meeting members want to debate this issue? Okay, hearing none, we'll proceed to the question. Moved and seconded that further consideration of Article 7 be indefinitely postponed. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, as you might remember, Articles 8 and 9 were part of the consent agenda, so we're going to proceed to Article 10, page 16 in your green folder, or green packet. On behalf of the proponents, Jeff Calabrese.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. We're losing it. So Article 10, these are FY25 adjustments or supplemental appropriations that I worked with town management on. There's 5 motions, 4 issues, and if we just walk through each one. So motion 1 is $10,000 from free cash for unemployment compensation. So as mentioned in the background, difficult to predict. Anticipate comm activity, but may need additional funding. Motion 2, more substantial, $150,000 from free cash to the health insurance expense budget. So again, in the background, there was a 17% increase versus 5% that was planned in the supplemental Medicare plan. So that's what drove the need for these additional funds. Motion 3 is for $10,000 for Medicare tax for expense budget. So reading through again, based on estimates and the shortfall need another additional $10,000. And motions 4 and 5 to wipe out the deficits for the snow and ice budget. So again, these are customary motions and worked on with town management on, but open to any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Can we hear a recommendation from the Select Board?
The Select Board recommended favorable action on all 4 motions. All 5 motions?
FinCom, unanimous support of all 5? Okay. So we're going to begin with the first motion and then proceed through, hopefully by voice, but if there's a need, we'll take out our clickers. It's moved and seconded that the town transfer $10,000 from free cash to the FY25 Unemployment Compensation Department 9130 expense budget. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. Hearing none, the motion carries. Motion 2, moved and seconded that the town transfer $150,000 from free cash to the FY25 Health Insurance Department 9140 expense budget. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. Hearing none, the motion carries. Motion 3, moved and seconded that the town transfer $10,000 from free cash to the FY25 Medicare Tax Department 9150 expense budget. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed, nay. Hearing none, the motion carries. Motion 4, moved and seconded that the town transfer $12,302 from the FY25 Snow and Ice Department 4171 equipment budget and $74,685.79 from free cash to the FY25 Snow and Ice Department 4171 personal services budget. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. The motion carries. Motion 5, it's moved and seconded that the town transfer $222,452.60 from free cash to the FY25 Snow and Ice Department 4171 expense budget. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. The motion carries. Okay, we'll now proceed to Article 14, which is on page 14 of your green packet. On behalf of the Capital Planning Committee, page 20. On behalf of the Capital Planning Committee, its Chairman Roger McPeak. It's on the input.
Not coming out.
Did I do something? Come on.
This one was working, right?
This is ours.
Yeah,
This
so
is,
the
there we go.
input's working there.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Back up.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Mr. Moderator. That's my usual fun splash page. Let's see. So what you're going to see from us, I'm going to be very quick because I want to make up some time for you folks. Article 15 was account closeouts. All the details are in your motion book if you're interested in which things they were and how much they were for. Article 16 will be the capital projects that you traditionally see coming along here. You're going to have Chris Nixon up here in a moment talking to you about those projects. I don't need to go into detail. I want to tell you just a little bit about the major thing that changed, and that is that we had to delay the Everett Avenue culvert repairs for permitting and easement issues, and you'll see that again in the fall. That freed up $340,000 that we had in our plan, and that led us to add in 3 new projects down below: a vehicle, a trailer, and a records automation project. So that's all good stuff. In Article 17, you'll have Brian up here talking to you about construction funding for the Woodside Road sewer pumping station. That was all previously engineered by the previous town meeting. And Article 18 will be Enzo up talking about water quality and in the South Cambridge Road area. Please vote for this. I told him fresh water, fresh clean water is the easiest sell to town meeting, and I don't want to disappoint him. So you'll see me back up here for Article 20 to talk about the strategic maintenance account. I do want to echo earlier comments from Mr. Miller that the WCCP is getting their feet on the ground and getting up to speed, and we have had an initial meeting with them. It looks like we've got a good plan on how we can coordinate together and align our schedules and be able to cooperate together and support each other in the areas that we can. So that's all good news going forward for both the traditional capital planning process and the CPA process that will be going forward. This evening, let's see. I found myself thinking lately that we don't say thank you enough, or at least I don't say thank you enough. And I want to take a minute here and say thank you to some people that appear at the end of our reports. And this is the end of our cycle here right now. And their names appear at the end of the reports, but they're critical to what we do. And the first person that I'd like to thank is Meg White. And she's sitting up in the back up here. She's our town special projects manager. And she's been with the town coming up on 20 years, and she oversees our projects from conception to closeout. And at our meetings where we're getting things ranked and everything else like that, she helps keep us on track in terms of the sorts of things that we should be thinking about if we have multiple projects that could be bundled together, stuff like that. Where she really comes into her own is these projects that we put together. If you think about it like a household project, if you've ever done a bathroom or something like that, never does anything go exactly right. And then when you take a project that the town undertakes, multiply that by 100-fold. And all the little things that can go wrong that you had perfectly thought out in advance, she's there taking care of that for us as we go through that process. And she's there making sure that we get exactly what we signed up for, and the town is getting a really good outcome from that project. Luckily for me, she also assists with the capital report itself in the fall. So she does an awful lot of good hard work. And Meg, I just wanted to say thank you very much from the committee. The other person that I wanted to thank is Mark Toogood. And Mark has been around here for, since about 1850, I think. Among his many responsibilities as assistant town manager, as he directly interfaces with the capital planning committee. And his work starts well before our cycle actually starts. So we're going to finish here at this town meeting, and then we're going to take a break and go, and we'll reorganize at the beginning of July. His work is going to start almost immediately after this process ends, where he's going to be going out and gathering all the requests from all the departments and committees and boards, pulling those together, pre-screening them, pre-vetting them, putting them into a format that's appropriate for us to utilize before we start bringing in those people and grilling them. He's always at our meetings. He's always bringing forward the priorities of the town manager and of the select board and making us aware of those. And he also sort of keeps us in line in terms of when we sort of slide off to the side and maybe want to do something where government regulations don't allow it. And you'd be surprised that there are a lot of government regulations that surround this stuff. And we seem to manage to try and find a way to break one or two of them every cycle. So he's good at keeping us back in line. And he's just constantly communicating with us about what's going on within other areas and things that are changing dynamically literally from minute to minute. I can get a call from the man going, something just blew up, and then 10 minutes later, never mind, it's okay. So that's great. finally, once the rankings are complete, we've gone through our process and our rankings are complete, he goes off and gets the warrant articles generated, the motions that we vote generated, and we come in here and present them to you and take credit for all of that really good work. So generally, he just keeps the whole process working and smooth. And I just wanted to say thank you, Mark, because you do an awful lot for us. As the moderator mentioned earlier, Jimmy was, it would be remiss of me not to say something about Jimmy. With all the time that he put in for this town and as much of it that was focused on capital. When I joined Capital, he was on already. And to me, he was a leader, a mentor, and a friend. Jimmy and Capital were a natural together. Our projects spanned the town, and Jimmy was a man that spanned this town. And as many of you know, he loved trucks and heavy equipment. And DPW, when the DPW vehicles people would come in to present, we just added on extra time because we knew we were going to have to slow down. There were going to be a lot of questions coming from Jimmy about trucks that we were buying and the heavy equipment and things like that. It was great. It was great. He did not shy away from hard work at all. And at the start of each capital cycle, he would climb up that rock pile of things that represent Winchester capital projects, and he'd start swinging away, trying to reduce that rock pile and make it smaller. And we're all better off for the effort that he put in for this town. Finally, I just want to say thank you all for everything that you do. Appreciate it very much. See you at Article 20.
It is moved and seconded that the revised Capital Planning Committee report for FY26 be received and filed. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. Hearing none, the motion carries. We move on to Article 16. On behalf of the Capital Planning Committee, Mr. Chris Nixon. Mr. Nixon, while you're coming down here, the chair wants to let you know that you tricked me with a false finally on your previous report. And I was going to interrupt you, but you gave me a fake out. So now I'm on to you. Finally has to be reserved for the last slide. Okay. No false finalies.
Fair enough.
Article 16.
Capital Planning, Article 16.
When did you send it to me?
Yeah, I gave it to you. You opened it up earlier.
Oh, did I? I'm sorry. I'm trying to find it. Oh, there it is.
Just open the PowerPoint.
Yep. Sorry, I forgot to put it in a different folder.
Presentation. Good. Thank you very much. Thank you, thank you, Mr. Moderator. It's old habit. And thank you, Heather, for your service. So my name is Chris Nixon. On behalf of the Capital Planning Committee, pleased to present Article 16 tonight. There are 10 motions. The first 8 are 2/3 majority votes from the Building and Capital Stabilization Fund. The last 2 come from Water and Sewer retained earnings, simple majority vote. Mr. Moderator, I will get through the first 8 in 10 minutes. I may pause and see if you want to take up action on the first 8. If not, I may ask for a couple of minutes on those last 2. First, very quickly, let's kick off with motion number 1. It's the only motion that comes from the Building Stabilization Fund, refers back to something I addressed under Article 1 on behalf of the EFPBC, and that is we are coming back to the well, what we hope for the third and final time, to address the concrete deterioration here at Winchester High School. So first, the EFPBC did come to you in the fall of 23 with a $100,000 ask of free cash so that we could better analyze, test, and understand the pathway that was leading to deterioration of concrete in some limited areas here on the first floor at the high school. You supported that. We appreciate it. And then last fall, a joint article on behalf of both Capital and the EFPBC sought $845,000, and that was to actually bring forward some tested and proven methods to arrest the deterioration caused by carbonation, sort of below decks, if you will, issue a bid set with specs, and also advance the design documents for the topside repair. And we appreciate that. So as I said under Article 1, we have a contractor that we've identified, qualified low bidder. We should be executing a contract soon. So what remains now is that topside repair. This is an image some of you may recall from about a year and a half ago. What are we dealing with on the top side? We have in some limited areas deterioration due to chlorides, literally salts. Not quite sure how they got there. Could have been contaminated water and adhesive products when the building was first built back in 1970. But it needs to be addressed. You're looking at some images of the guidance hallway, which is right outside this door. DPW actually picked through the loose concrete about a year and a half ago and did a great job with a temporary repair and some carpet in these areas. But these are helpful images because it tells you what we are dealing with in some areas of the high school. It's less than 0.7% of the floor area on the first floor. But adjacent to the hallway in the guidance department, and I hope this image is not too dim, you can tell that the carpet is heaving a little bit right under the door leaf, and that gives you an idea of what we're dealing with below. Not only under carpeted surfaces, but in our public spaces, the deteriorated concrete is telegraphing, if you will, through the resilient sheet goods. It's cracking the porcelain tile. And so I mentioned in this third step, having already asked for $100,000 at fall of 23 in free cash, and then $845 last fall, here we are tonight, seeking that third round of funding so that we can complete the bid documents for the topside repair and get going on that work, and hopefully get some done as soon as this summer. We're asking $450,000 for that appropriation. Moving on then to motion number 2, we're now coming out of the Capital Stabilization Fund. This is a very regular item we've been funding for the past 12 or 13 years. Each year we typically set aside $125,000 to support the town's Americans with Disabilities Act, or ADA, transition plan. The money is overseen by the Disability Access Commission, and it addresses our barriers to access and egress. Now, last year we did contribute more. We actually contributed $143,000, excuse me. That was in part to a unique one-off $18,000 refund. There was a balance coming out of the Parkhurst elevator project, and since the DAC helped us get that project to completion, giving us some of the funds, we thought it was appropriate to give that fund balance back, and so you supported that. But here we are this year back at the original 125. I will just say that the DAC is reviewing the town's latest ADA transition plan and survey, and there have been some conversations with members of the select board about it being time to revisit the town's ADA transition plan, so we might actually have a different number next year reflecting a new plan. But for now, we're plugging along with the 125. Moving on to motion number 3, again, a pretty typical motion we make every year to supplement the DPW's roads and sidewalks budget. Although they do get to use Chapter 90 funds from the state, they also rely on us to supplement that work. Prior to the operating override of 2019, we were funding this at between $325,000 and $375,000 a year, and having some difficulty keeping up with the DPW's overall plan around improving roads and sidewalks and resurfacing and so forth. So helpfully then, after the override, and you remember that override included $2 million to support capital projects, we've been able to fund this at $500,000 a year. The recommendation is that we do so. Moving on then to motion 4, $175,000 request to update Winchester's floodplain maps through FEMA. So FEMA is responsible for mapping the country's flood risk. The agency and its partners do so by making flood insurance rate maps, or what we call flood maps. Upon completion of the Morocco Culvert project, if you should support the Select Board's Article 19, as we hope you will, this is the last of Winchester's years-long flood mitigation program. The town will petition FEMA for a remapping through the agency's physical map revision, or PMR, process. At the conclusion of this process, FEMA will reissue updated flood maps with flood insurance rate panels. The request here tonight includes the funding required for the full process, including compiling all the information and relevant studies to date with filing fees, notifications, and responses to comments. And hopefully it's bright enough that you can see. If you look at this hatched area, it's an image here. The high school is to the right, the pond is to the left. You see the railroad tracks. That hatched area is what FEMA calls Flood Zone AE. It's designated by the agency as a regulatory floodway. This represents a high-risk area with a 1% annual chance of flooding and a 26% chance over the life of a 30-year mortgage. These zones are often found near floodplains, rivers, lakes, and other low-lying areas. So based on a town preliminary analysis, should this get passed tonight, and we remap the whole town following the Morocco Culvert project, approximately 275 properties are expected to see reduced risk, and perhaps as many as 145 could be completely removed from the 100-year floodplain. And I have to put in this plug. If we look at a similar map of the Morocco School in the Tufts Road neighborhood, that's Morocco designated with the red mark down below, and you see the railroad tracks to the left. You'll notice how today the northern end of Morocco encroaches into the 100-year floodplain. And it's in this very area of the school that has seen damaging flooding over many years. It's the reason the lower level was mothballed back in the 1980s. Approving motion 4 tonight not only redraws the flood maps for Winchester writ large, but it specifically creates much more flexibility in site planning and design for the new Morocco school, whatever that may be. Motion number 5 is some fun equipment. It is a brush cutter and mower, but the DPW calls it a boom flail mower. What the heck is that? It's a $50,000 attachment for one of the 3 trackless machines that the DPW now has. The tracklet, they have 3 trackless. You actually funded the first one back in the fall of 2019 to replace the old Bombardier snowplow. This is an interesting machine. It's very flexible. It articulates in the middle, and you can use all sorts of attachments to accomplish different tasks. The DPW has subsequently received 2 more through state earmarks over the years. The boom flail attachment that you see here in this photograph attaches to the front of the DPW's trackless. You can see here you can easily cut grass and brush along the water's edge safely. You can actually raise it up over guardrails and cut along the brush and improve sight lines at intersections. And you can cut slopes as well. And the funding request includes sort of the dually tires you can imagine are necessary to keep it from tipping over. And so the request for motion 5 from the Capital Stabilization Fund is $50,000 for the boom flail mower. Motion number 6 out of the Capital Stabilization Fund is a request from the Building Department for a replacement vehicle. This is a request to replace the existing 2013 EV. It's a Ford Focus. It's not a 4-wheel drive vehicle. It has charging and battery issues. It's basically out of service, and the estimate to repair it is around $20,000, which is essentially what it's worth, if not more, so that vehicle is essentially totaled. It's 12 years old. They need a replacement, and for winter use, they would like all-wheel drive. We estimate the cost of the car after incentives is around $45,000. The car would be shared with the health department and the engineering department when possible. Motion number 7 from the Capital Stabilization Fund is a new solid waste trailer for the transfer station. The request is $110,000. This trailer would replace trailer number 5. It is 18 years old, completely worn out. Our transfer station needs to have 4 trailers in good nick for operations. They're currently using 3 on overtime. I hope this is bright enough for you to see the level of deterioration and rust on the trailer. I will tell you one of the axles is completely rotted inside, and so while I have no way to show you the inside of a rotted axle, I will tell you if you can put your finger through a trailer, that's probably good enough reason that it's time to replace it. And so therefore, the ask here is for $110,000 to replace the trailer. They did look at the axle repair. It would cost 50% of the value of the new trailer and come with no warranty. There's not much good steel that they could attach it to.
Mr. Nixon, how many more minutes do you need?
Mr. Moderator, that wraps up. I'm not quite. I need maybe 60 seconds on motion 8.
Let's do them all, and then we can do all
Okay,
of them.
how about 2 minutes?
Motion to grant 2 minutes to the Speaker. All those in favor? Any opposed?
Thank you very
Granted.
much. Last motion from the Capital Stabilization Fund. The Building Department is making a request of $102,000 for digitization and records management system. Our building department is managing over 500,000 images, hard images, and over 200,000 documents. This request would support ZBA records as well. Although the department went digital in 2022, they have a tremendous backlog of physical records. Majority of this request, $88,000, is literally photographing these and digitizing them, but the request includes a system that not only staff can access, but the public can access as well for research. We move in now to motions 9 and 10. These are simple majority votes coming from water and sewer retained earnings. This one will be familiar to many of you. This is our regular MS4 permit request. It's $150,000 for the town's compliance with federal EPA rules under MS4. We are in year 7 right now. This would be funding work under year 8. The town does caution there may be some new MS4 rules coming, but for now we're operating under the existing permit rules. This funding would include catchment investigations, stormwater training for DPW, quarterly inspections, an update to the town's stormwater management plan, and so forth. And as I said, it's a $150,000 request. The last, finally, Mr. Moderator, motion number 10, the last request from Water and Sewer is for new hardware and software for operations at our water treatment facility. The existing tech infrastructure, the hardware itself, is nearly 13 years old. It's running a 16-year-old operating system. Support is no longer offered on the equipment. The $75,000 request includes replacement of the 2 servers and licenses for operation, as well as a 3rd server to gather historical data and help us better manage alarms on the reservoir and with the water system and improve security. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Nixon. The chair finds that finally was in order. I appreciate that. Can we have the recommendations of the Select Board?
Select Board recommended favorable action on all 10 motions.
Thank you very much. The recommendations of FinCom.
The Finance Committee recommends favorable action also on all 10. Thank you.
Okay. The School Committee has a couple recommendations for us.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. School Committee recommends favorable action unanimously on motions 1 and 4.
Thank you. At this time, town meeting members may proceed to the microphones if you have any questions or comments for the meeting's consideration. Wow, okay. It seems like, there's always one pooper at the party.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Brian McCarthy, Precinct 4, through you to the proponents. One of the items talked about, and I unfortunately don't remember which one it was, it talked about licensing of software for 2026. And is that what's the licensing costs after that point in time? Sorry, Chris, I didn't know which line it was.
Through you to Mr. Nixon.
So the building department, yes, thank you for the question. The digitization and the records management includes the license for FY26. For FY27 moving forward, the license costs will be rolled into the operating budget. I believe our building commissioner, Tom Kennedy, is here tonight and can confirm the cost for the license, I believe, is somewhere on the order of between $2,500 and $4,000 annually. I'm looking for a gesture if that's thumbs up. Higher. 2,200. 4,200. That's why they pay him the big bucks. But that would be wrapped, that would not be a capital request, that would be wrapped into the building department's budget for FY27 for next spring.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other town meeting members have a question? All right, the chair senses that town meeting is ready for the question. We'll proceed one by one through the 10 motions. Just as a reminder, motions 1 through 8 require a 2/3 majority. Numbers 9 and 10, a simple majority. Okay. It is moved and seconded that the town vote to appropriate $450,000 from the Building Stabilization Fund established under Chapter 69 of the Acts of 2002 for the high school concrete topside repair and remediation project, including construction equipment and engineering and all other costs incidental and related thereto. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. Hearing none, the motion carried by a two-third majority. The comptroller would like me to remind everybody that this funding is available as of July 1st, 2025. Good? They're all appropriations for FY26. No problem. Motion 2, it is moved and seconded that the town vote to appropriate $125,000 from the Capital Stabilization Fund established under Chapter 69 of the Acts of 2002 for the ADA transition plan, including construction, equipment, and engineering, and all those costs, other costs incidental and related thereto. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. Hearing none, the motion carries by a two-third majority. It is moved and seconded that the town vote to appropriate $500,000 from the Capital Stabilization Fund established under Chapter 69 of the Acts of 2002 for DPW roads and sidewalks, including construction, engineering, and all other costs incidental and related thereto. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. The motion carries by a two-thirds majority. It is moved and seconded that the town vote to appropriate $175,000 from the Capital Stabilization Fund established under Chapter 69 of the Acts of 2002 for FEMA floodplain map update and all other costs incidental and related thereto. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. The motion carries by a two-thirds majority. Motion 5. It is moved and seconded that the town vote to appropriate $50,000 from the Capital Stabilization Fund established under Chapter 69 of the Acts of 2002 for DPW roadside brush cutter and all other costs incidental and related thereto. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. Hearing none, the motion carries by a two-thirds majority. Motion 6. It is moved and seconded that the town vote to appropriate $45,000 from the Capital Stabilization Fund established under Chapter 69 of the Acts of 2002 for building department vehicle and all other costs incidental and related thereto. All those in favor, aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The motion carries by two-thirds. Motion 7. It is moved and seconded that the town vote to appropriate $110,000 from the Capital Stabilization Fund established under Chapter 69 of the Acts of 2002 for DPW transfer station trailer and all other costs incidental and related thereto. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. Hearing none, the motion carries by a two-thirds majority. Motion 8, moved and seconded that the town vote to appropriate $102,000 from the Capital Stabilization Fund established under Chapter 69 of the Acts of 2002 for Building Department Records Management and all other costs incidental and related to. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. Hearing none, the motion carries by a two-thirds majority. Motion 9 is moved and seconded that the town vote to appropriate $150,000 from the Water and Sewer retained earnings for MS4 permit compliance and all other costs incidental and related thereto. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. Hearing none, the motion carries. And number 10, moved and seconded that the town vote to appropriate $75,000 from the Water and Sewer retained earnings for computer programming, water treatment plant, and all other costs incidental and related thereto. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. Thank you. Okay, we proceed to Article 17. On behalf of the Capital Planning Committee, Brian Vernaglia.
Good evening. I'm back on behalf of the Capital Planning Committee. Article 17 is to fund the total costs to repair the sewage pumping station on Woodside Ave and restore the site. And Mr. McPeak mentioned that you like fresh water. I hope you also like your sewage pumped away from your house as well. So this article should not appear new to you unless you're new to town meeting. We came before you a year ago to request funding for engineering design and told you to expect the full project the following year. And at that time, we cheekily told you how old the station was. It predates any Elvis Presley's singles. You graciously approved that request unanimously, and thank you. Now we're back to fund the project. As a recap from last year as far as why we're here, the sewage pumping station is utilized to force pump sewage to a higher point in the system where gravity can take over. It utilizes old technology that requires excessive man-hours for maintenance. It's corroded, parts are hard to find, and failures are becoming more and more likely. This pumping station serves about 70 homes. When we say the pumping station is old, we mean very old. Built in 1952, that was the year Queen Elizabeth acceded to the throne, Singing in the Rain would be released that same year in Technicolor. And Walt Disney was preparing to buy some desert land in California the following year. Moreover, old in this case shouldn't be confused with classic. Old means failing. Earlier this year, we had a forced main break due to high levels of corrosion. Again, sewage not being where you want it. As time goes on, events like this are more and more likely to happen. With engineering complete, we have a good handle on the costs to replace. We're asking for a $1.5 million borrowing authorization through the Water and Sewer Enterprise Account. These funds will be Chapter 110 eligible, meaning that approximately 14% will fall on the water and sewer rates, and the rest will fall on the tax levy. The price includes replacing the pumping station, the electrical service, and the sewer main, restoring the site. The project will be staged so that the sewage pumping station will be maintained during the construction, and then the old system will be switched over to the new system. We are ready to go out to bid this summer, and we ask for your support. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Can we hear the recommendation of the Select Board?
Select Board recommended favorable action on this motion.
Thank you very much. FinCom?
The Finance Committee recommended favorable action.
Okay, at this time, if any town meeting members want to be heard on this topic, please proceed to the microphones. Okay. It is moved and seconded that $1,500,000 is appropriated to pay the cost of remodeling, reconstructing, and making extraordinary repairs to the Woodside Road pumping station, including rebuilding the existing Woodside Road pumping station and modifying and upgrading the sewer force main located in the vicinity of Woodside Road pumping station, including the payment of all other costs incidental and related thereto, that to meet this appropriation, the treasurer, with the approval of the Select Board, is authorized to borrow said amount pursuant to General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 7(1) and Section 8(4), or pursuant to any other enabling authority, and to issue bonds or notes to the town therefore, that the town manager shall be authorized to have oversight of the project, and that in accordance with Section 4.2 of the Town of Winchester Home Rule Charter, the town manager shall have the authority to enter into contracts and approve payments with respect to the project. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. The motion passes unanimously. Thank you. On to Article 18. I will remind you guys, the body again, that this requires a 2/3 vote. On behalf of the Capital Planning Committee, Enzo Roscinato.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Good evening, town meeting members, select board, and FinCom. My name is Enzo Roscinato from Precinct 1, and on behalf of the Capital Planning Committee, I'll be presenting Article 18 for your consideration. Article 18 requests $800,000 for the water system improvements for Cambridge Street, and Roger was not lying. In fact, that's exactly how he convinced me to do this, is that everyone loves clean water. So in the last fall town meeting of 2024, town meeting approved $200,000 to research water quality issues in this area, and now we're back to get approval to move forward with implementing the full project. The area covered is around 40 houses on Cambridge Street between Robinson Street and Arlington Streets. You can see here on the map the area that's impacted. There's been long-standing water issues with this area of Cambridge Street going back more than 3 years. Lots of attempts to fix it, including installing filtration units on some houses, but the underground iron piping in this area is causing rusty water that is difficult to filter out and wears out plumbing systems. So we're asking for $800,000, which will cover the full project. It's going to be replacement of the liner on the iron pipe across the full area, and this type of liner replacement has been done in many places across town, and it's a common problem for years. The cost includes construction, administrative costs, police details, as well as the contingency. And if approved, it's going to be funded out of the Water Sewer Enterprise Fund. Thank you.
Thank you. Can we hear the recommendation of the Select Board?
Really, would we vote against clean water? No. We recommended favorable action.
Thank you. Finance Committee?
Finance Committee recommends favorable action.
Are there any town meeting members that would like to be heard? Okay. It is moved and seconded that an additional sum of $2.6 million is sorry, wrong one. Too much, right?
Too much.
Okay. It is moved and seconded that $800,000 is appropriated to pay the cost of construction of improvements to the water system located on Cambridge Street and in the Cambridge Street area, including the payment of all costs incidental and related thereto. That to meet this appropriation, the treasurer, with the approval of the Select Board, is authorized to borrow said amount pursuant to General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 7.1 and Section 8.4, or pursuant to any other enabling authority, and to issue bonds or notes of the town thereof. Therefore, that the town manager shall be authorized to have oversight of the project, and that in accordance with Section 4.2 of the Town of Winchester Home Rule Charter, the town manager shall have the authority to enter into contracts and approve payments with respect to the project. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. Hearing none, the motion carries unanimously. Okay. Article 19 is related to the Marco School culvert. We're going to postpone this article to a time certain, that time certain being the last, or the second to last article of business of this town meeting. So does anybody, the Select Board, want to speak to that, or can we just proceed? Yeah, okay. So it was moved and seconded that this Article 19 be postponed to the second to last business of this town meeting. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. The motion carries. Okay, Article 20. On behalf of the Select Board, the Town Manager, and the Capital Planning Committee, Roger McPeak.
So this is a program that you've occasionally seen on consent, but I feel it's important, we feel it's important that we get up and explain what we're doing with this money and how this program works for the town and its value. It's a program that was started by Lance during his time on the board, and what this program does is it creates a pool of money so that we can take a look at equipment and vehicles and roofing systems. And I was going to bring you a bunch of very pretty pictures of all of those sorts of things, but I couldn't have beat the picture of a sewer plant that Brian put up there. So just imagine all of these things in your mind. And when we see something failing, or we see something that is on the edge of failing, and and we can put some money into that asset, and extend its useful life by 3, 5, 7 years, we make that investment. And those are numbers that are bigger than what the operating budgets for the various departments would allow, and it allows us to do it very quickly and get in and extend these systems and keep them going. And as an example, one of the very first projects that we did was we had a boiler that was going south on us at Ambrose. And it was are we going to try and really put some money in and extend the life of this thing, or are we going to just have to go out and buy a brand new boiler? So we put in about $30,000 into retooling it, and that was 5 years ago, and it's still going strong. So when we can see these opportunities to put money in and extend the life of these things, we defer major expenses for the town. And it's just a great program. And anytime you see the select board, the town manager, and capital planning all getting up and wanting to co-sponsor this, you got to believe that it's a good program for the town. I just want to make sure that you all understand how valuable this is to us in terms of deferring major expenses when we have such a limited capital budget to begin with. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McPeak. Select board have a recommendation?
We co-sponsored this article with capital planning. Thank you, Roger, for making the compelling case. Select board recommends favorable action. We know that we can use $100,000 in repairs every given year. We're hoping for $200,000 from town meeting. We have, I'm sure, hundreds of thousands more. So it's always well-used money, and there's always a need. So thank you.
Thank you. Finance Committee?
We did not get the invitation to put our name on this article, so we'll not. We fully support this. Like we said in our opening report, we're drastically underinvesting in capital projects, and it's just a matter of whether we have to spend this money, whether it's planned or unplanned. So we fully support this $200,000.
Thank you very much. At this time, are there any town meeting members that would like to be heard? Mr. Marmon, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Excuse me for my ignorance. Does this fund already exists? Yes. Do we have an accounting of what has gone into it and what has come out of it?
Through me to the town comptroller, Stacy Ward.
Good evening, town meeting. Thank you, Doug. We have been contributing or appropriating money into this fund since, I believe, FY15. 100 grand, 100 grand, 100 grand, 100 grand, 100 grand. So in total, so far, we've contributed $1.1 million into this for the last 10 years. We've spent about $861,000. We have $238,000 left. This was based on, I think, 2 weeks ago. I ran this report. Sorry, it's not through today, but we've been using it for maintenance here and there. It gives the town manager the flexibility to spend the money without having to come back to town meeting the times that we meet twice a year.
And who is authorized to take money out of this account?
It's authorized by the town manager with I believe, the advice of the capital planning committee.
Okay, so thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Any other questions from the body? All right, I think town meeting is ready for the questions. It is moved and seconded that the town appropriate $200,000 from free cash to the Strategic Capital Maintenance Fund for extending the useful life of town assets, including but not limited to equipment, vehicle, building systems, and any other town infrastructure, And further, to authorize the town manager in consultation with the capital planning committee to administer and expend funds from said account effective July 1st. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Nay. The motion carries unanimously. So at this point is almost 10 o'clock. We've reached as far as we can go tonight. We're going to come back on Thursday, discuss the bylaws, because that's the only thing we can, one of the few things that we can discuss on Thursday. Any FY26 items have to be pushed to the first Monday of May. So on Thursday we hope to do some bylaws, and the chair will hear a motion to adjourn. Second. Thank you.
Good evening once again, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Alan Iden here at the Winchester High School. You have just seen the first session of Winchester's Spring Town Meeting here on April 28th, 2025. Let's recap what has happened this evening. We have a new moderator, Philip Frateroli, who commented that moderators in Winchester turn over less often than popes. There's 56 articles on this warrant. 12 of them are consent articles, which were all voted on at once. Basically, consent articles are articles that it is presumed there is no debate on them. However, town meeting members have the option to pull that out and debate them if they want. They did not, so all 12 articles were passed. We opened at 6:44 p.m. Comments. We heard some comments about some participants of the town that were in the 250 years ago in the shots were heard around the world. We also heard that on April 30th, 1850, 175 years ago, the charter of the town of Winchester was signed. We had a moment of silence for two members that had passed. Charles Nuremberger, was formerly on the select board, and James Johnson, just in the past couple of weeks, who was 18 years on the select board, as well as capital planning committee and other activities around town, including the town day committee. There was a moment of silence for both of those gentlemen. The preliminary motions were passed to allow light cable television coverage and non-town meeting members who are town employees or committees to sit up front. So the first half of the meeting was the reports of the town boards. We heard from the chair of the select board, Michelle Pryor, talked about the upcoming Morocco Culvert project and appropriating money to extend town assets and issues with the Converse Place project. He said the select board is focused on developing new housing and has a challenge of increasing healthcare costs, and they are looking for new revenue sources and cost cutting. Finance Committee Chair commented on the lack of capital investments in town. He said the town should be spending $24 million a year on capital projects. We did $21 million this year, and there is going to be a $4.6 million deficit this year. He emphasized the town needs to maintain its credit rating, saying that a drop in the credit rating, for example, could cost $5 million more on a potential Morocco school project. The school committee, chair of the school committee, talked about the goals of education, proud of the support of the students, commented on strikes in other towns that hindered education, and also about the growth in special ed and multi-language needs in the Winchester schools. They said they are examining every line of the school department budget, $70.4 million budget, which is a 6% increase this year, as they said, just to maintain the current levels. Beth Rudolph, the town manager, commented on Mike Wise's retirement as the operations director at the DPW after many years of service, and said he will be missed. She said FY26 will be a challenge. There's $21 million of free cash, but it'll be around $19 million with the demands on that free cash. She said there was a 19% increase in the town's health insurance. Therefore, the town is looking for a new provider. She said we have 4.9% in affordable housing stock, far short of the goal of 10% to stay, so the town can be in what they call safe harbor, which can protect them against unwanted projects, housing projects, 40B projects. And the town is working on the development of the property that it owns at the corner of Washington and Swanton Street. Committee on Government Regulations spent summer and fall reviewing all the regulations. All the changes were reviewed with Town Council, and you'll be hearing some of these in upcoming articles. Educational Facility Planning and Building Chair Chris Nixon talked about the ongoing work here at the high school for to repair concrete deterioration. Also talked about the $1 million project to rebuild the gym, which is removing the floor and completely reconfiguring the gym to allow for more spectator space. He said that project will be ready for the fall. In the meantime, the graduation in spring will be held at Symphony Hall in Boston. The new Lynch School is on schedule. There's a full solar roof and on the canopies over the parking lot, and also has a green roof, so there'll be outdoor activities even within the school. Several items came in under budget, and he said there will be public tours probably in August. The new community CPA committee, Community Preservation Act, which is funded by a surcharge on the property taxes, gave a report. Recreation, housing, and community preservation are the goals of this fund. They'll be matched. The funds raised by this will be matched by the state beginning next year. And to be appropriated, applications are due next spring, and appropriations will be made next fall. There will be public hearings to discuss the use of these funds. Excuse me. The state said that we started faster than most other communities. Permanent Street Tree Committee reported next, talked on the declining status of trees, the benefit of the trees in the town, and especially to real estate values. They showed some maps of tree canopy analysis of the town, maps of the gains and losses, and there was an 8% loss in tree canopy in the last 5 years. After recess, we moved on to Article 3, the Planning Board report. Said the Planning Board loves acronyms. The duties of the board, talked about the duties of the board, and said that the town is in full compliance with the MBTA zoning law. North Main Street zoning will encourage mixed use, that North Main Street being from Skillings Road to the Woburn, on Main Street, Skillings Road to the Woburn town line. They're waiting for approval at the Attorney General's office of the new accessory dwelling rules. There are no major zoning issues pending, but the town does need to produce 40 units of affordable housing a year to stay in safe harbor, and we're not there. Article 4 was to create a floodplain overlay district. New flood maps have been created for the 100-year floods. All these articles are being passed, by the way. There was nothing's been rejected. Article 5, this is an article for the Ledges looking to carve out a portion of their property on Wainwright Road for a single-family home. That was tabled, and it was explained that that is without prejudice, whereas an indefinite postponement would probably would result in them not being able to bring it back for 2 years. Article 6 was to change the zoning for that above. That was also tabled for that Wainwright Road use. Article 7 was to prohibit the use of anticoagulant rodenticides on town property. The Board of Health could overrule in an emergency. The state is looking at this for a statewide regulation. She listed several other ways to control rodents, but this was moved to a definite postpone for further study. Article 10 was 5 motions to move free cash to cover some shortfalls in the budget. Article 14 was the Planning Committee report. They were thanking Mark Toogood and Meg White for their assistance on the projects and commented on the many years of service of Jimmy Johnson. So those capital projects that were passed were 10 articles. Just really quickly, $450,000 for the aforesaid concrete remediation projects here at Winchester High School. $125,000 for an ADA, American with Disability Act's transition plan. $500,000 for roads and sidewalks. $175,000 for updates to the FEMA flood maps. And the comment there was that 275 households might get reduced flood rates because of the town's ongoing efforts on flood mitigation. New roadside brush cleaner for the DPW for $50,000. A new building department vehicle for $45,000, replacing an old electric vehicle. Transfer station trailer for the transfer station for $110,000. Building department records managements, $102,000. Water and sewer MS4 compliance, whatever that is, for $150,000. And computer programming of the water treatment plant for $75,000. All of those passed. Article 17 was $1.5 million for a new pumping station, sewage pumping station on Woodside Road. Commented that was built in 1952, and that serves about 70 homes in that area. And that was passed. Article 18, also in the same area, same genre, was improvements to the water system on Cambridge Street. Set about 40 houses around Cambridge Street and Robinson Park, which is near the Arlington line. Iron pipes are rusting, a lot of rust in the water. That was $800,000. That passed. Article 19 is the large appropriation for a Morocco School culvert. That has been postponed till second to last article at town meeting. Article 20 was $200,000 from free cash to extend the life of town assets. The town has been appropriating $100,000 a year for this since 2015, and several comments were made as an excellent use of funds. Particularly, one example was a boiler that probably needed replacement, was failing at Morocco School, at Ambrose School, and $30,000 was used to fix it, and it is still going strong. So several committees reported on a good use of town funds to extend town assets, and that vehicles, building, equipment, etc. And that's where we ended up for the night. So this is the first session of Winchester's Springtown meeting, and the next session will be this Thursday, and probably a fairly short session because financial articles will be taken up beginning next Monday. So we invite you to come back here and watch our coverage of it this Thursday, and next Monday continuing coverage of the Winchester Springtown meeting here at WinCam at the Winchester High School. For all the WinCam crew, I'm Alan Iden. Have a great night.